the young boy with the cannon and a giant flying spiked mace, capable of dealing magical damage, is none other than our protagonist, Bangugan. At this moment, he is battling a horde of green-skinned goblins, each armed and charging toward him, seeking to take him down. A quick glance would suggest there are at least a few hundred of them. Yet Bangugan shows no signs of fear or concern. "Are you ready?" Ju-won asked coldly. Just as his words settled, something suddenly darted through the air, striking the goblins. Each one hit was instantly obliterated. Without so much as lifting a finger, Ju-won effortlessly annihilated the wave of goblins that dared to attack him. The remaining goblins, witnessing the devastation, hesitated and kept their distance, not daring to make a reckless move. The source of their terror, a flying spiked mace that swept through the goblins, tearing them apart. After wiping out the initial wave, the mace floated back behind Ju-won, leaving a storm of shattered goblin bodies raining down. The sight made the surviving goblins gasp and instinctively retreat. Amidst their panic, a sudden arrow pierced through the air, heading straight for Ju-won. However, before it could reach him, the spiked mace intercepted and shattered it effortlessly. While the arrow achieved nothing, it did draw Ju-won's attention. It wasn't just Ju-won who noticed. Every remaining goblin turned to look at the archer who had fired the arrow. Their eyes filled with disbelief and disdain. It seemed they were cursing their comrade internally, questioning his audacity to attack Ju-won. Sensing that Ju-won was about to target the goblin archer, the surrounding goblins quickly scattered, leaving the archer isolated and exposed. It was a foolish move to rely on sheer numbers against Ju-won, and to make matters worse, firing a reckless arrow only sealed his fate. "If you think my power ends here, then you're gravely mistaken," Ju-won declared. "Bang! Transformation!" he shouted, and at that moment, a golden magic circle appeared beneath the handle of the spiked mace. The weapon began emitting a golden light, as if preparing to transform. Around them, the air seemed to shift, as though the true battle was just beginning. The goblins, sensing that Ju-won was about to deal a massive blow to them all, seized the opportunity. While Ju-won's weapon was still transforming, the goblins let out a battle cry, charging forward in a desperate attempt to strike first. However, the transformation of the spiked mace into a magical cannon took less than a second. In the blink of an eye, the weapon aimed directly at the charging goblins, its barrel glowing as it began accumulating energy for a devastating blast. Ju-won smiled confidently, saying, "This reminds me of something from my childhood." Flashback to Ju-won's childhood. At just 4 years old, Ju-won demonstrated extraordinary abilities. Somehow, the boy had already learned to read, astonishing everyone by picking up a book titled The Light of My Life and uttering a few words from it. His parents were overjoyed. "Look, dear, our child is reading in the original language. A genius," his father exclaimed, beaming with pride. "You've given birth to a prodigy, my love," he added, making the mother blush slightly. "Oh, stop it," she said shyly. "But when did you teach him English?" "I didn't teach him," the father replied nonchalantly. At that moment, the atmosphere grew tense. "Then how does he know languages from countries he's never seen?" the father asked nervously, while the mother's knitting needles froze midair. To their further astonishment, Ju-won began murmuring phrases in Japanese and Chinese as well, leaving them utterly bewildered. Their silent questions seemed to summon an answer. For just then, the door burst open. "Ha ha, our Ju-won truly carries the bloodline of our ancestors," proclaimed a burly old man, stepping into the room with a booming voice. "At last, our family has produced a child who can fulfill the long-standing wish of our lineage," he declared, still holding another child casually under one arm as though it were a routine occurrence. "This child will reclaim the Tower of Babel for our family," he continued excitedly. Ju-won's parents could only exchange resigned glances and shake their heads. "Father's at it again," they muttered. Meanwhile, the old man called out cheerfully, "Yumi, come here," as the scene faded into a mix of exasperation and familial chaos. The wife awkwardly spoke up. "Father, since you're back, why don't you go wash your hands first?" The husband sighed heavily and added, "Yes, please, go clean up." Seeing the couple's obvious skepticism about his claims, the old man grew frustrated, gripping the racket in his hand tightly as if he wanted to break it in half. "I'm telling you, the Tower of Babel is real," he snapped. Of course, it's real," the husband replied, still engrossed in the newspaper without sparing even a glance at his father. His dismissive tone made it clear he was simply humoring the old man. Turning his attention to his grandson, Ju-won's mother asked, "Did you have fun playing with Grandpa today?" Knowing he couldn't convince the parents, the old man instead turned to his grandson. "Ju-won, let Grandpa borrow this, okay?" Without waiting for a response, he took the sketchpad and crayons from Ju-won's hands. He began drawing something while speaking animatedly. "A long time ago, in a chaotic world, our great ancestor possessed a unique ability to help everyone communicate with one another. With that power, he led the people and built a tower that would never collapse. That tower was the Tower of Babel." Hearing this, Ju-won's curiosity was piqued. "A tower built by our ancestor?" he asked excitedly. "A tower, like a tall building? Was our ancestor the owner of that tower?" As he asked, his eyes sparkled like gold coins, realizing his family might not be as ordinary as he thought. In an instant, Ju-won clung to his grandfather's leg and eagerly asked, "Grandpa, where is our tower? Where is our tall building?" Ignoring the question, the old man laughed heartily. "Our ancestor was a master linguist, a genius who could translate and transform any language. We must never forget that we are descendants of such a remarkable figure." "Father, go wash your hands already," Ju-won's father interrupted, clearly annoyed. Turning back to Ju-won, the grandfather admitted with a sigh, "I don't know where the tower is." Hearing this, the gleam in Ju-won's eyes dimmed, and he muttered in disappointment, "But it's our tower." Despite Ju-won's disheartened expression, the old man firmly grasped his grandson's shoulders and declared, "It doesn't matter where the tower is now. What matters is that you, Ju-won, have the potential to find it and restore our family's legacy." But there was one thing the old man could guarantee. "Once you find the tower, our family will regain its full strength and glory." As a child, Ju-won always looked forward to his grandfather's tales of their ancestors' adventures. He secretly hoped that the extraordinary linguistic talent bestowed upon him would help fulfill the family's long-standing wish. Yet, as he grew, he realized that his abilities far exceeded anyone's expectations. Present day. Now, Bang Ju-won was a university entrance exam candidate. Sitting in his private room, he checked his scores on his laptop. Looking at these results, "I'm sure I'll pass," he muttered confidently, scrolling through his application for the Department of Politics and International Relations at S University. "But why are the results so late?" Ju-won complained as his gaze stayed fixed on the screen. Suddenly, his laptop's display flickered and became filled with static. The screen turned chaotic, showing no recognizable images. "What's going on?" Ju-won muttered, pressing F5 repeatedly in an attempt to fix it. Before the laptop could resolve itself, a strange simulation-like screen appeared, freezing Ju-won's actions. What is this?" he stammered, staring at a mysterious blue window filled with squiggly, unreadable characters he had never seen before. Curious and confused, Ju-won squinted at the text, attempting to read it. To his surprise, the words started to make sense. "The most exceptional academy across all dimensions. Congratulations, you have passed the preliminary application review." Ju-won's face turned pale as he stood up abruptly. "What the heck is this? How can I even understand this?" he thought, panicking as notifications continued to pop up on the screen. "Student Bang Ju-won has been summoned to the practical evaluation site. If you pass, you will become a provisional student. Prepare yourself. Countdown, 1908. Seeing the countdown, Ju-won grew more alert. Looking around cautiously, "Is this some AI prank? Panumi, if this is you, come out," he yelled, trying to make sense of the situation. At that moment, his laptop finally completed its self-repair, and a notification popped up, snapping him back to reality. It was an official acceptance letter. "Congratulations, Bang Ju-won. You have been admitted to the Department of Politics and International Relations at S University." The letter displayed his candidate ID, full name, and date of birth, February 20, 2001. Ju-won stared at the screen, caught between disbelief and relief, as two vastly different futures loomed before him, one in the world he knew, and another in the mysterious realm he had just glimpsed. The announcement on the screen confirmed. The candidate listed above has been admitted to our university for the academic year 2022-2042. Signed, the principal of S University. Looking at the notification, Ju-won let out a sigh of relief. Haha, I guess I was just too nervous and started imagining things. He laughed, thinking he had been hallucinating. What he didn't notice was that the countdown on the mysterious blue screen was still ticking down. Teleporting to the assessment site in 4, 3, 2, 1. As the system's voice concluded, Ju-won's body flashed and vanished from his room. Simultaneously, his younger sister, Yumi, opened the door and walked in. Hey, Bang Ju-won, did you pass or not? She called out, glancing around. When she didn't see her brother anywhere, she frowned. Bang Ju-won, she shouted again. She had definitely heard his voice earlier, but now the room was empty. Scene change, a limestone cave. In the sky above the cave, mysterious magical circles suddenly appeared, glowing with intricate patterns. A beam of light descended, and Ju-won materialized, plummeting straight down to the ground with a loud thud. Ow, that hurts, he groaned, rubbing his back. Before he could make sense of his surroundings, the system's voice chimed again. Special practical assessment for candidates from the secondary dimension has begun. Objective: defeat the blind goblin and destroy the dungeon core. Hearing this, Ju-won was left in disbelief. This can't be real, he thought, clutching his head. This isn't a game. Did I really just get summoned? The pain's too real for this to be a dream. As he stood there panicking, the system continued. Practical evaluation, special test, proceed immediately. Ju-won shouted at the air. Take me back, I didn't sign up for this exam. However, the system wasn't designed to respond to complaints. Before he could argue further, the sound of footsteps echoed from behind him, making him freeze. It was real. Turning slowly, Ju-won's worst fears were confirmed. Standing before him were two goblins with menacing faces, gripping crude wooden clubs in their hands. A human, one of them growled, "I can smell the prey here." The other sneered. Ju-won's mind raced. It's really happening. I'm going to die here if I don't do something, he thought, his heart pounding as the goblins advanced. The goblins spoke while scanning their surroundings, their expressions cautious and wary. On the other side, Ju-won quickly clamped his hands over his mouth and began to back away slowly. They're calling me the prey. Oh my god, they're talking about me, and now I can even understand their language. What in the world is happening? Ju-won's mind raced. Practical assessment. Blind goblins. Dungeon core. Is this real? Do I actually have to beat these things to escape? The whole situation felt like something out of a game or a fantasy novel. But the pounding headache and overwhelming sense of reality told him otherwise. He glanced back at the two goblins, who were still turning their heads left and right, clearly unable to see him despite his proximity. They called them blind goblins, didn't they? Maybe that's why they can't see me. Realizing he needed to act if he wanted to survive, Ju-won thought, I have to defeat them. But how? I'm just a normal guy. Modern humans can't even handle a chihuahua, let alone goblins. Panicking, Ju-won smacked his hands on the ground in frustration, a move he instantly regretted. The noise alerted the goblins to his position, and one of them swung its wooden club toward him. With a loud whack, the club narrowly missed Ju-won, slamming into the ground just in front of him. The sheer force of the blow left a small crater, and Ju-won's life flashed before his eyes. If that had hit me, I'd be apologizing to my ancestors right now, he thought, trembling. His mind scrambled for answers. Wait. They really can't see me, can they? I just have to stay calm. Don't panic, Ju-won repeated to himself, trying to keep his composure. But his plan quickly fell apart when his betraying flip-flops let out a loud squelch as he shifted his weight. The goblin with the hat instantly perked up and charged toward the sound. Swinging its club wildly, Ju-won yelped and instinctively dodged to the side. barely escaping as the club smashed into the ground again with a force strong enough to create another hole. If that had hit me, I'd be done for, he thought, his heart pounding as he stumbled and fell. Desperate, Ju-won threw himself flat on the ground, clamped his hands over his mouth again, and lay still like a frightened puppy, hoping the goblins would lose track of him once more. The goblins paused, their heads swiveling in confusion, searching for their prey. Ju-won, despite his terror, remained motionless, praying they wouldn't find him. As the other goblin heard the strange noise, it immediately spoke up. "What's that? I heard something over here." The goblin with the hat responded. "You sure?" "Of course. The sound came from here. Don't let it escape," the bald goblin confirmed, and both turned toward Ju-won's position. Ju-won, now frozen in place, didn't even dare to breathe. Stay calm, he told himself. They're blind, but their hearing and sensitivity to movement are incredibly sharp. They hunt by coordinating with each other to corner their prey. If they keep this up, no matter how well I hide, I'll get caught eventually. If I don't want to die, I need to think of something fast. Recalling the behavior of the blind goblins, Ju-won realized he could exploit their reliance on sound. Acting quickly, he reached for a small rock nearby, gripped it tightly, and hurled it forward. The noise of the rock hitting the ground immediately caught the goblins' attention. The pair turned toward the sound and shouted to each other before rushing in that direction. As the bald goblin groped around the ground for its prey, all it managed to find were 2 more rocks that Ju-won had thrown earlier. It held the rocks in its hands, puzzled, but couldn't yet piece together that it had been tricked. Seeing this opportunity, Ju-won's eyes sharpened. This is it, he thought to himself, gripping a larger rock about the size of a brick. With all his might, he flung the rock straight at the bald goblin's head. Crack! The rock struck its target, causing the goblin's head to gush blood as it staggered and let out a howl of pain. In a reflexive panic, the injured goblin swung its club wildly behind it without hesitation. Unfortunately for the goblin with the hat, it had just rushed into range and took the full force of the bald goblin's swing. The blow struck its jaw with a sickening crunch, sending teeth flying and leaving it sprawled on the ground. Stunned, not wasting a moment, Ju-won mimicked the goblin's voice and shouted, "The prey is fighting back. Finish it off." Hearing the command in a familiar tone, the injured goblin immediately acted without thinking, focusing its rage on its own teammate. It swung its club at the downed goblin with brutal force. Oblivious to the true situation, Ju-won watched from a safe distance, holding his breath as the goblins unknowingly turned on each other. This might just work, he thought, carefully planning his next move. The goblin with the hat gripped its wooden club tightly, swinging it with immense force toward the bald goblin. The blow landed with a sickening crack, crushing the bald goblin's skull and sending it collapsing to the ground. With a single strike, the bald goblin was done for, its massive body slumping forward and pinning the goblin with the hat underneath it. From a safe distance, Ju-won watched the 2 goblins' self-inflicted destruction. Seeing the outcome, he gasped for air, overwhelmed by both relief and the adrenaline coursing through him. However, the goblin with the hat was still alive, struggling to free itself from under its fallen comrade. Ju-won knew that to complete this strange assessment, he had to finish the job. He glanced toward one of the fallen wooden clubs nearby, quickly picking it up. Meanwhile, the goblin with the hat managed to wriggle out from beneath the heavy corpse. As it sensed footsteps approaching, it raised its battered head and locked eyes with Ju-won. For a brief moment, Ju-won froze, his face a mix of panic and determination. "I'm sorry, but you tried to kill me first. This is just how it has to be," Ju-won murmured, steeling himself. "If I can't even end a dying creature, I'll never survive this dungeon." With those words, Ju-won raised the club high above his head and struck down with all his might. The goblin let out a final, guttural cry before its body fell limp. Its struggle ceased, and silence returned to the cave. Ju-won, trembling, stared at the 2 lifeless bodies in front of him and exhaled deeply. "At least, I'm still alive," he whispered, trying to calm himself. But before he could gather his thoughts, the corpses of the goblins began to emit a soft golden glow. Strange runic symbols floated out from their bodies and moved toward Ju-1, swirling around him in a mesmerizing dance. What is this?" he muttered, startled. As if to answer his question, the system interface materialized in front of him. "Congratulations, you have completed your first hunt in the dungeon. Your reward: superior spatial power, Babylon code unlocked." Ju-1 stared in disbelief as ancient script spun in the air above his palm. Glowing faintly, the system explained further, "The Babylon code has been unlocked. This power manifests in the form of hieroglyphs, a symbolic language familiar to its wielder. Additional information: hieroglyphs are symbols used to convey thoughts through imagery." Ju-1, still in shock, looked down at the glowing symbols dancing on his hand. This is the power of the Babylon code," he murmured. Astonished, the realization that he had unlocked something extraordinary left him both awed and deeply unsettled. This was no longer just survival, it was the start of something far greater than he could have imagined. Expanding on the explanation, the system described hieroglyphs as symbols that convey the concept of objects through their shape, providing a deeper understanding of their essence. Looking at the notification, Ju-1's eyes revealed a hint of surprise. "Hieroglyphs familiar to me," he muttered, intrigued. "If it's familiar, then, kanji," he decided aloud. The system immediately responded. "Registration successful, kanji selected." The system elaborated further. "Unlike phonetic scripts, kanji conveys meaning through its form. From the two goblins, corresponding concepts acquired are demon, life, and body. Other concepts are too complex or irrelevant for the current absorption level of the user." Ju-1 watched in amazement as specific kanji characters began to rise from the bodies of the two goblins. "Wait, absorption, possession of concepts," Ju-1 exclaimed, his mind racing as he observed the goblins' bodies slowly disintegrating into particles of light before him. "So my ability isn't just limited to languages. I can extract concepts from beings or objects," he thought. Stunned by the revelation, as the goblins completely vanished, the system continued. "Absorbed, 0.2 demon. Note: demon is a concept humans cannot naturally possess. It is recommended to store it in the Babylon code or reassign it to other entities." The remnants of the goblins left behind 3 glowing kanji characters in red, blue, green, and purple. Ju-1, now beginning to grasp their potential, decided to test the system further. He reached out and grabbed the blue-green character. "So I can either keep this or apply its concept. Should I try it now?" he wondered, his curiosity outweighing his caution. With a determined breath, Ju-1 pushed the blue-green character into his chest. As the character merged with his body, the system chimed. "Absorbed, 0.4 life. User's life force increased to 10.4. Overall abilities and potential enhanced." The notification faded, and Ju-1 immediately felt the change. His body seemed lighter, stronger, and his spirit lifted. "I feel amazing," he thought, taking a deep breath and flexing his fingers. His mind, once clouded with fear and doubt, now brimmed with newfound confidence. The realization hit him: this wasn't just survival. It was an evolution. "Wow, I already feel more confident," Ju-1 exclaimed with excitement. Riding the wave of his newfound energy, he reached for the glowing red hieroglyph and absorbed it as well. As the energy flowed into him, his body seemed to gain even more definition and strength. Absorbed, 0.2 body. Physical stats increased to 10.2. Health and strength improved. Ju-1 felt a euphoric rush, almost like he was high on something. What is this incredible feeling? My strength, my muscles, everything has improved, he marveled. I've absorbed and understood the concepts from those goblins, he thought, piecing it together. Their corpses vanished after I took their power, leaving just these 2 wooden clubs. If these concepts can apply not only to myself but to objects as well, I might actually have a chance to escape this dungeon. Encouraged by this idea, Ju-1 grabbed the last remaining purple hieroglyph. "Let's see what this one can do," he said, ready to push forward. Time passed quickly. Using the powers he had stolen from the goblins, Ju-1 plowed his way through the dungeon, leaving behind a trail of lifeless green bodies. His newfound strength and abilities allowed him to wipe out every blind goblin that dared to stand in his way. I've mastered the abilities unlocked so far and used them to annihilate the entire goblin horde. Ju-1 muttered, taking a moment to catch his breath as he approached the dungeon core. With a single, powerful strike, he shattered the glowing core into countless shards. As it crumbled, the system spoke again. Congratulations, you have successfully completed the special practical assessment for secondary dimensional candidates. Ju-1 let out a sigh of relief. Finally, it's over. That means I can go home now, right? He said, grinning widely. But the universe had other plans. The system chimed in with a new message. The candidate will now be teleported to the dormitory. What do you mean dormitory? Ju-1 shouted, but before he could protest further, a bright light enveloped him, yanking him out of the dungeon and into the unknown. Transition to a new scene. When Ju-1 opened his eyes, he found himself in an unfamiliar room. Looking around, he noticed the space was sleek and modern, with an otherworldly ambience. Where the hell am I now? He muttered, scanning his surroundings. The infuriating system immediately provided an answer. Welcome to Union Academy, the greatest institution across all dimensions. You have been enrolled as a provisional student. Your next tasks will be provided shortly. Ju-1 groaned, rubbing his temples. This isn't over, is it? He thought, glancing out a nearby window to see a sprawling, futuristic campus filled with impossible architecture and students from countless races and dimensions. The realization hit him hard. This is just the beginning. Congratulations on passing the practical assessment and becoming a provisional student. Please prepare yourself in the dormitory, put on the Union Academy uniform, and attend the interview. The uniform represents the pride of our academy. As soon as the announcement ended, the system provided Ju-1 with a neatly folded uniform and a pair of shoes. Seeing himself forcibly dragged into another task, Ju-1 was furious. What? An interview? I'm already in university, and now I have to wear a uniform again. Give me back my freshman freedom. He fumed. They throw me into a death trap. And now they want me to attend an interview. Fine, once I meet whoever is in charge, I'll show them what respect really means. Grumbling, he quickly put on the uniform and marched out of the dormitory. Despite his frustration, Ju-1 somehow navigated the halls of the unfamiliar building with surprising ease. Heading straight to his destination. How do I even know where to go? He thought briefly but dismissed it, focusing on venting his anger. Finally, he reached a large door. Without hesitation, he flung it open dramatically, ready to voice his frustrations. But before he could shout, he froze. Inside the room sat a stunning woman with long, neatly tied orange hair, adorned with a delicate flower. She turned to look at him with a mix of surprise and curiosity. What is this? Ju-1 thought, his fiery temper evaporating in an instant. His entire body stiffened like a statue. She's gorgeous. Is she even human, alien, angel? His earlier bravado was gone. He stood there, speechless and awkward, completely thrown off by her beauty. The woman, noticing his flustered state, smiled slightly. It didn't take her long to deduce his identity. So, this must be the new provisional student, she thought, amused by his nervous demeanor. Welcome to Union Academy, Mr. Ju-1, she said warmly. Please, take a seat. Her calm and inviting tone only made Ju-1's heart race faster. Still stiff and flustered, he awkwardly shuffled into the room, his earlier determination to teach them a lesson completely forgotten. Welcome, Ju-1. I am Ayumina, Professor of Combat Magic here at Union Academy. It's a pleasure to meet you. Ah, yes, thank you, Ju-1 stammered, clearly flustered. Seeing his awkwardness, Ayumina smiled warmly and continued. First of all, congratulations on passing the practical assessment. Welcome back. Ah, thank you, Professor, Ju-1 replied, scratching his head sheepishly. But Ju-1, Ayumina added with a curious look. Do you realize that your performance in the assessment caught the attention of all the professors here? Huh, all the professors? Ju-1 asked, confused. Yes, Ayumina nodded enthusiastically. "You're the first student in 500 years to create an entirely new item during the evaluation." Hearing 500 years. Ju-won's face froze in disbelief, looking as though he was in physical pain. 500 years? Seriously, I was thrown into that place without knowing anything and almost died. And now this? He screamed internally. But Professor Ayumina, oblivious to his inner turmoil, continued with a cheerful smile. "That's amazing. Really, you're an exceptional case, far beyond the scope of the special assessment." Seeing her bright and carefree demeanor, Ju-won could only sigh. This must be a difference in worlds. What seems like a nightmare to me is exciting to them. Whatever, I'll get out of this strange place as soon as this interview is over. He silently resolved to himself, trying to calm his thoughts. As he glanced around the room to distract himself, his eyes caught something outside the window that made him freeze. "Professor, that tower, what's its name?" he asked hurriedly, pointing outside. Following his gaze, Ayumina turned toward the window. "A tower? Oh, I see. People from secondary dimensions don't know much about Union Academy or its history." Her tone turned serious as she explained. "That tower is the reason Union Academy was founded. We train students with extraordinary abilities from different dimensions to help them ascend the tower. It represents the ultimate aspiration of Union Academy, and the shared dream of all dimensions, to conquer the Tower of Babel." Hearing the name, Ju-won's heart skipped a beat. The Tower of Babel, the same tower Grandpa always talked about. His thoughts spiraled into chaos. "Wait, a dungeon? That's the tower my grandfather always mentioned. What is going on here? Everything he said about our ancestors is here, and they're calling it the dungeon of all dungeons." Ju-won's mind raced, torn between disbelief and realization, as everything he had dismissed as family legends started to take on a startling new reality. "So the tower is overrun by strange monsters," Ju-won muttered, piecing together what he had learned. "No matter, the glory of my family and everything that belongs to my ancestors. I will reclaim it all," he declared with a confident smile. At that moment, Ju-won made his decision. He would join Union Academy. Thanks to Professor Yumina's intervention, he was granted a brief return home before officially starting his studies. Back with his family, he explained everything that had happened, leading to a moment Ju-won would never forget. "What, you found the Tower of Babel?" his grandfather shouted, leaping with excitement. "Good job, that's my grandson." "Father, calm down, you'll overexert yourself," Ju-won's uncle quickly interjected, trying to prevent the old man from getting too excited and passing out. After everyone finally settled down, Ju-won focused on preparing for his enrollment. Now, deep within Union Academy's lower-level dungeon, the Goblin Cave, Ju-won stood at the ready, armed with his trusty AK-47 with unlimited ammunition. He prepared to teach the goblins a harsh lesson on the superiority of modern civilization. Before the goblins could even charge at him, a relentless storm of bullets rained down, shredding them to pieces, quite literally. Ju-won remained unfazed, calmly advancing while clearing a path of destruction. Not a single goblin could stand in his way. "Here we go." Back then, my power was limited to language manipulation, he thought, walking forward with quiet determination. But now, after absorbing concepts from these demons and goblins, everything has changed. He reflected on the concepts he had gathered. Demon, 3.4. Life, 6.8. Body, 3.4. Murder, 0.34. Ranged attack, 0.57. The Babylon Code allows me to turn concepts into language, absorb them, and manipulate their essence. Every time I defeat an enemy, I gain the concepts I can comprehend. The more I collect, the stronger I become. Ju-won glanced at the spiked mace in his hand, which had been imbued with the concepts he obtained during his first dungeon, the Blind Goblin Cave. "This guy right here," he said with a grin, "has become a powerful weapon thanks to those concepts." As if on cue, the spiked mace moved on its own, smashing into a goblin that had attempted to sneak up on him. The impact sent the creature flying, its teeth and jaw indistinguishable in the aftermath. "Nice try," Ju-won quipped, casually swinging the mace back over his shoulder as he continued on his path. This is the goblin mace, Ju-1 remarked, holding the weapon fondly. It was the first item he had ever created by infusing demonic energy into a goblin's club. The weapon could transform and act autonomously, responding to the commands of its master. Seeing how useful it had become, Ju-1 couldn't help but gently stroke the mace. I only made it by accident. But thanks to it, I managed to complete the assessment successfully, he mused. After admiring his creation for a moment, Ju-1 turned his attention to the battlefield. The remnants of his foes lay scattered around him. Time to clean up the spoils, he muttered, beginning the familiar process of absorbing the concepts from the fallen goblins. Concepts absorbed: life, 5. Demon, 3. Goblin, 5. Body, 3. Soul, 2. Leadership, 1. Murder, 1.7. Family, 0.05. As Ju-1 reviewed the system's notifications, one particular entry caught his attention. Soul, what exactly is that? He wondered aloud. Before he could dwell on it, the spiked mace, his trusty bang manga, suddenly moved on its own, rushing toward him with an almost excited demeanor. What is it? You want the soul? Ju-1 asked, half amused. The mace nodded eagerly, confirming its intent. All right, Ju-1 chuckled. Of course, it's yours. I'll even throw in some life, demon, and goblin for good measure. He focused his energy, manipulating the hieroglyphs that hovered around his hand. Concentrating hard, he compressed the concepts into a glowing orb. This is what I've learned so far, combining fragments of concepts I've gathered and channeling them into my weapon, he thought as he worked. With practiced precision, Ju-1 embedded the orb into Bang Manga. The moment it entered, the mace began to glow with an intense, radiant light. The energy surged, signaling the start of its evolution. The system chimed. Concepts successfully merged. Demon, 2.5. Beast, 4. The fusion achieved perfect harmony, creating an item beyond the current dimensional limits. Hearing the announcement, Ju-1's eyes widened in astonishment. It worked, he thought, marveling at the results. The goblin mace, now fully evolved, radiated power far beyond anything Ju-1 had anticipated. Its very presence seemed to hum with energy, a testament to its new and formidable strength. Beast, Ju-1 exclaimed in surprise. So one of the concepts I extracted has evolved on its own. As he spoke, the glowing orb in his hand cracked open, scattering into shards of light. Inside, a small snake emerged, slithering gracefully. Thanks to the superior fusion process, the concept of demon and beast had combined perfectly to create a demonic beast. Now fully realized, a demonic beast, combining the characters demon and beast, created this. Incredible, Ju-1 marveled. Cautiously, he extended his hand toward the snake. Can I touch it? He muttered, feeling both curious and slightly apprehensive. To his relief, the snake recognized him as its master. It slithered forward and gently nuzzled against his arm, showing its affection. Still the same personality. I wonder if it can still transform into a weapon, like a gun or shield. Ju-1 muttered, smiling warmly. You're adorable. From now on, your name is If. After naming the snake, Ju-1 paused. Before we head back, let's check our growth stats, he said, opening his personal status screen. Bang Ju-1, personal stats. Life, 45.1. Body, 32. Soul, 324.5. Magic power, 38.7. Swordsmanship, 14.2. Leadership, 1. 10,000 eyes, 105. 10,000 ears, 100. Language god, 100. Life seems to function like levels in a game. Body reflects physical strength. But why is my soul stat so high? Ju-1 wondered, scrolling through the details. Abilities like 10,000 eyes and 10,000 ears must relate to my language skills. Shrugging, he decided to ignore the stats he didn't fully understand for now. Turning back to the snake, Ju-1 asked, "What do you think, If, ready to meet our classmates?" Hearing this, If shook its head vigorously, clearly embarrassed. "Don't worry," Ju-1 reassured it. "What matters most is growth. Right, With the dungeon cleared, the system prompted him. The dungeon core has been destroyed. You may now leave the dungeon. Do you wish to exit? All right, time to head out. The Union Academy entrance ceremony is about to start. Ju-1 said, pressing the yes button on the screen. Almost instantly, his body was enveloped by a glowing magic circle, and he was teleported out of the dungeon. Scene transition, Union Academy, auditorium. The atmosphere in the auditorium was electric, filled with excitement and chatter. New students from countless dimensions had gathered for the entrance ceremony, their unique appearances and abilities creating a vibrant, dynamic crowd. As Ju-1 materialized in the hall, he took a deep breath. This is it, the start of a new chapter. The auditorium was bustling with all sorts of races and beings, some so unique that Ju-1 even spotted a knockoff Adidas brand sign accompanied by a smiling face logo. Inside the grand hall, students hurried to find seats, the air buzzing with excitement. Ju-1, however, didn't get to choose his seat. Instead, he was teleported directly into the center of the room, startling a few people nearby. As he looked around, he was just as shocked. Wow, so many people, he muttered, activating his 10,000 eyes ability. This ability allowed him to read the stats, aura, and even the essence of those around him, depending on his proficiency. Instantly, the attributes of others started appearing in his vision like floating data. For instance, a molten rock-skinned student nearby had a stat labeled PVC, while a sharp-looking blonde had a stat called FA, which seemed overwhelmingly strong. Seeing this, Ju-1 couldn't help but feel a little intimidated. These students are completely on another level compared to me. They're at least 10 times stronger. Unlike himself, who had been admitted through a special test as a candidate from a secondary dimension, most of these students were enrolled through the standard process, which clearly seemed more competitive. Where am I even supposed to sit? Ju-1 wondered, scanning the hall. Before he could figure it out, a gruff voice called out from behind him. If you're from a secondary dimension, stop wandering around and get lost. Ju-1 turned to see a large, intimidating figure, someone who looked like the final boss of a dungeon raid. Clearly, this guy wasn't someone Ju-1 could handle at his current level. Swallowing his pride, Ju-1 raised a hand awkwardly and replied, "Oh, okay, thanks." The group around the brute burst into laughter, mocking him. Ju-1, however, wasn't angry. This is nothing new, he thought to himself. Those who come through the standard process are bound to be arrogant. Discrimination against people from secondary dimensions is just another form of the strong looking down on the weak. That's the same everywhere, no matter the world. Just as he was feeling a bit isolated, a voice called out from the back of the room. "Hey, special admission student, come sit here." Ju-1 turned to see a friendly-looking blonde waving him over. Grateful for the gesture, he quickly jogged over to the seat, his earlier unease fading slightly. So this area is for students from secondary dimensions. Ju-1 thought, looking around. Wow, it feels like we're being exiled. Feeling awkward, he activated 10,000 eyes to assess the stats of the nearby students. What he saw almost made his eyes pop out. No way, are these really students from secondary dimensions? He thought in shock. Despite their supposed inferior status, their stats were incredible, easily surpassing those of the standard admission students. Ju-1 scanned the group nearby. The blonde-haired guy had stats marked as SAA. The white-haired girl was labeled SSSSS. The pink-haired girl had the stat abs. But what confused him even more were 3 other stats, T and X, which didn't make sense to him. As Ju-1 observed the blonde-haired student more closely, a glimmer of recognition sparked in his mind. Wait, isn't that Laban? Hey, Laban, is this area really ours? Ju-1 asked, trying to confirm. Sure is. Isn't it great? Laban replied with a friendly smile. Ju-1 couldn't help but think back to how they first met. Laban, the handsome guy the first ran into at the dorms before the entrance ceremony. Our first meeting was a little intense. Flashback, dormitory encounter. When Ju-1 first entered his dorm room, Laban greeted him by pointing a sword directly at his neck and shouting, "Who are you?" Ju-1 froze, his eyes wide as saucers. staring at the blade mere inches from his throat. "Are you kidding me? I'm your roommate," Ju-won yelled, his voice filled with both panic and frustration. Realizing his mistake, Laban pulled back his sword, looking embarrassed. Sorry about that. I just got back from the practical assessment, so my nerves are still on edge. Are you okay?" "Yeah, I'm fine," Ju-won replied, though he was clearly annoyed. This guy looks like a prince straight out of a fairy tale. But he's way too hot-headed, Ju-won thought. Still, he apologized, so maybe he's not all bad. Back in the present, Ju-won was about to mention his own practical assessment when Laban smirked dismissively. "You fought blind goblins in your assessment? That's it?" he scoffed. "Even rookie trainees can hunt goblins like that with ease." Ju-won clenched his fist, trying to keep his composure. This guy might look like a prince, but he's as arrogant as they come, he thought, irritated but determined not to let it show. "The opponent in my practical assessment," Laban said smugly, "was an entire army armed to the teeth with organic weapons." He shared his story with an air of pride, which only made Ju-won's blood boil. This guy is unbelievably obnoxious, he thought, silently apologizing to himself for even attempting to get along with Laban just moments earlier. Trying to let it go, Ju-won forced himself to relax, a slight smile forming on his face. "Anyway, we've been sitting here chatting without even showering. It's been a while since I've had anyone to talk to like this," he said casually. "Same here," Laban replied with a nod. Without warning, Laban unbuttoned his shirt, revealing a sculpted, muscular physique. "All right, let's hit the showers. Shared facilities here, right? Let's talk more while we're at it," he said nonchalantly. Ju-won was taken aback by the sudden display. But before he could respond, he noticed Laban's face turning red, almost as if he were blushing. "You go first, Ju-won," Laban stammered, clearly flustered. "Huh, why, aren't we going together?" Ju-won asked, genuinely confused. Laban, avoiding eye contact, waved him off awkwardly. "I'll go later." Ju-won couldn't help but give him a strange look, wondering why the confident prince was suddenly so embarrassed. Time heals all awkwardness, right? Ju-won thought, shrugging it off. Back in the present, Ju-won realized he hadn't properly greeted the others in their section. Since this is the area for special admission students, I should at least introduce myself, he thought, turning toward the others. "Hello," he said cheerfully. The pink-haired girl smiled brightly and replied, "Hi." Her innocent and adorable demeanor almost made Ju-won's heart stop. Too cute, he thought, nearly losing his balance. "Nice to meet you," he said again, trying to steady himself. Then, he turned toward the white-haired girl. "Oh, and you too." "Hello." The white-haired girl, with her unique black eyes, stared at him intently. Her gaze was so piercing that Ju-won felt a twinge of unease. Is something wrong?" he asked hesitantly. "The thing wrapped around your arm is interesting," she said calmly, her eyes fixed on his wrist. Realizing what she meant, Ju-won didn't bother hiding it. He raised his arm and called out, "You mean if, right, looks like you all can see it." "Huh?" As he spoke, the small snake if emerged, slithering around his arm and raising its head to observe the group. Seeing how adorable the snake if was, the faces of the three students around Ju-won began to soften, their expressions melting into pure delight. Even the usually stoic white-haired girl, Do-ho-jon, blushed with excitement. "So cute. This snake was your weapon before, right? It's changed so much in just a few days." "Live?" the pink-haired girl asked, unable to hide her admiration. "Can I touch it? It's so adorable," she added eagerly. "If it's okay with if." "Go ahead," Ju-won replied, glancing at the snake. The snake, sensing the attention, leaned its head forward curiously, as if giving its approval. Meanwhile, Do-ho-jon spoke up with a calm yet curious tone. "I'm Do-ho-jon, daughter of a martial artist. And you?" "I'm Bang Ju-won," Ju-won responded. Then, tilting his head, he asked, "Wait, martial artist, so, do you know kung fu or something? Like shooting energy blasts?" At his question, the three others burst into laughter. Even Do-ho-jon, who was usually composed, had to clamp a hand over her mouth to stop herself from laughing too hard. Well, you're not completely wrong, she replied between giggles. Ju-won scratched his head in confusion. What's so funny? In a magical world like this, having martial artists isn't that strange, right? He thought, trying to brush off the awkwardness. Turning to the pink-haired girl, she introduced herself with a bright smile. I'm Zutal, nice to meet you, and I'm Aslan, but you can call me Live, the blonde boy added with a grin. As Ju-won repeated their names, Live's cheerful demeanor suddenly earned him a dismissive glance from De Ho-jon, who turned her head away, seemingly disinterested in continuing their conversation. Ju-won could only smile awkwardly, shrugging at the social dynamic. Looks like the ceremony's about to start, he said, glancing toward the stage. On stage, Ju-won's eyes lit up as he spotted someone familiar. Professor Iomina, he exclaimed, pointing toward the beautiful professor seated at the front. Hearing his excitement, Live raised an eyebrow. Wait, Professor Iomina, did she mentor you? Ju-won nodded. Yeah, she guided me during my admission process. Same here, Live added with a nod. Before the group could continue their conversation, the auditorium lights dimmed suddenly, and all attention shifted to the stage. The ceiling of the auditorium began to split apart, retracting to reveal the night sky. The stars above shone brightly, creating a surreal and awe-inspiring atmosphere. The murmurs of the crowd quieted as everyone turned their gaze upward, anticipation building for what was to come. As the ceiling of the auditorium opened, it revealed a stunning view of the starry sky above. However, something else was happening. The ground beneath the stage also began to shift and open, adding to the group's confusion. What's going on? Members of the crowd murmured in bewilderment. Suddenly, a cold, commanding voice echoed through the hall. Everyone, focus. With those words, an overwhelming pressure descended upon the students, as if a massive weight had been placed on their shoulders. What is this? Why does it feel so heavy? Ju-won thought, his heart racing as he struggled to breathe. Despite the fear, he clenched his teeth and forced himself to look upward, seeking the source of the voice. High above, the voice continued. And now, the entrance ceremony for the 557th cohort of Union Academy officially begins. The voice emanated from a colossal spectral eye suspended in the sky. Its sheer presence radiated an aura of power so immense that it felt suffocating to most of the students below. This was no ordinary being. It was an entity of unimaginable rank and strength. As time passed and the oppressive atmosphere gradually dissipated, the ceremony concluded. Professor Iomina approached Ju-won's group, her cheerful demeanor contrasting sharply with the earlier tension. Impressive, wasn't it? That was the headmaster's speech, she said with a bright smile. Unfortunately, her enthusiasm wasn't shared. The students in the group remained silent, still unnerved by the lingering presence of the colossal eye. Ju-won, however, casually sipped his tea and nodded. Very impressive. So, the Eye King is the headmaster. Huh? Hearing this, the group collectively turned to him in shock. You looked at it? Live exclaimed. How could you dare to look directly at that thing? The others chimed in. The aura was so overwhelming. None of us even thought to look up. It was terrifying. Ju-won blinked in surprise, realizing he might have underestimated the situation. Sure, it was intimidating, but not to the point of absolute terror, he thought. At the same time, De Ho-jon fixed her intense gaze on Ju-won, scrutinizing him as if trying to uncover a hidden secret. Her expression conveyed disbelief that someone like him, weakling, could withstand the aura and gaze directly at such an overwhelming entity. The entity had clearly used a unique method to obscure its true form. Yet somehow Ju-won had managed to perceive it without being crushed by its presence. Sensing her probing gaze, Ju-won began to feel uncomfortable. Trying to ease the tension, he nervously explained, "It's just a feeling, like there's a giant eye watching us from above." His words didn't seem to satisfy De Ho-jon, who continued to analyze him, but the others seemed somewhat reassured. Meanwhile, Ju-won couldn't help but wonder, why was I able to handle it better than them? Is this something to do with my abilities? Setting aside Ju-won's ability to look directly at the headmaster, Professor Iomina shifted the conversation to a more serious topic. Regardless, that was indeed the headmaster. She began. In the future, unless you achieve some extraordinary accomplishment or cause a major incident, you won't have the chance to meet him again. Then, with a sly glance at Ju-won, she added, but it seems like you might get a private audience with him. Ju-won's face fell at her words. Professor, that sounds more like a curse than an honor, he muttered, clearly unenthused at the prospect of meeting such a high-ranking figure again. Hearing this, Ayumina chuckled lightly, covering her mouth. As your advisor, your accomplishments are also mine. So from now on, do your best, she said with a playful smile. Laban's eyes widened in surprise. And he turned to ask, wait, does that mean Professor Ayumina will be in charge of us? That's right, Ayumina confirmed, taking a sip of her tea. The revelation left Laban stunned. One of the 9 official professors of Union Academy is overseeing us, he thought. Incredulous. Meanwhile, Ayumina placed her cup down and formally introduced herself. I haven't properly introduced myself yet. I am Professor Ayumina, specializing in combat magic. I've been assigned as the homeroom teacher for your class. Class 11. Let's work hard together over the next 5 years. Hearing this, Laban asked, isn't it usually just teaching assistants who are assigned to students from secondary dimensions? That's correct, Ayumina acknowledged with a nod. However, this year's cohort is extremely special, so I was specifically chosen for this role. Even as she spoke, Ayumina couldn't help but reflect on her own thoughts. Special indeed, so special that I wonder how only students like these were selected. Her expression grew more serious as if remembering something important. Turning back to the group, she addressed them in a firm tone. While everyone is gathered here, I'd like to offer you some advice. Be wary of interference and hostility from the regular students. Ju-won's initial reaction was surprise, but he quickly understood the weight of her words. She doesn't just mean academic competition, he thought. She's talking about physical harassment, disputes, and open conflict between students. Ayumina continued. If problems arise beyond the bounds of internal competition governed by the Academy's rules, things could escalate dangerously. Stay vigilant. Her warning left the group quiet, the implications sinking in. It was clear that their journey at Union Academy would not be free from challenges, not just from the curriculum, but also from those who didn't welcome their presence. Even the professors cannot interfere. Professor Ayumina continued. If you want to grow and succeed despite the hostility and competition from other students, you'll need to be strong enough to overcome it on your own. She paused, letting her words sink in, then added, from now on, the 4 of you will operate as a team. This is the way for special admission students to thrive. You'll be teammates, working together to climb the tower until graduation. The group exchanged glances, a mix of determination and uncertainty in their expressions. All right, that's enough talk for now, Ayumina said with a smile. The Academy has prepared a small gift for you. Details and rules will be explained after you've received it. She snapped her fingers, and immediately, shimmering objects materialized before the group. The brilliance of the items left them momentarily speechless. What are these? Live asked, squinting at the glowing objects, which turned out to be necklaces. This is for student identification, Zutul asked, frowning slightly. They just look like ordinary pendants. Ayumina nodded. These necklaces serve as your student IDs. They grant you access to all the Academy's facilities and allow instant teleportation within Union's campus. Hearing this, the group decided to test the teleportation feature. Each of them muttered softly, Professor Ayumina is so beautiful. The moment the words left their lips, they were instantly teleported outside the auditorium. Professor Ayumina is so beautiful, Ultra shouted as they materialized back in the auditorium. Immediately, the teleportation activated again, pulling them back to their original positions. The group stood silently for a moment, processing what had just happened. Finally, they let out a collective sigh. What is even happening anymore? These necklaces are essential, Laban said, breaking the silence. We need them to access the tower. So like it or not, we have to keep them safe. He tucked the pendant securely into his pocket, a motion echoed by the others. On the other side, Zutul glanced at Ayumina and asked curiously, but why is Ju-won the only one being held back? Who knows? Laban shrugged. It could be because he managed to sense that terrifying entity. Do Ho-Jon speculated, her gaze thoughtful. The group nodded, though none of them could be sure. Ju-won, meanwhile, had a nagging feeling that this was only the beginning of something much larger. Do Ho-Jon silently recalled a conversation she overheard between Professor Ayumina and someone over the phone. Right now, are you sure? We've prepared a tea party. But, Ayumina had said, pausing before continuing, it's such a pity. Out of all the students, only one has managed to look directly at the headmaster. Scene transition to Ju-won. He sat stiffly in the headmaster's office, feeling like a sheep trapped in a predator's den. Why am I here? It's only my first day, and I already have to meet the headmaster. I haven't even done anything wrong. Ju-won thought, nervously fiddling with his fingers. Sensing his unease, a voice broke the silence. Relax, just look at me directly. Startled, Ju-won hesitated, then realized the voice was coming from a small doll sitting on the desk. My true form isn't here right now, the voice continued. For now, just call me teacher. Yes, teacher, Ju-won stammered, finally managing to focus on the doll. The headmaster wasted no time getting to the point. Let me explain why I called you here. He began. Typically, I don't interfere with the growth of students. Whether they're strong or weak, their fate, whether they die inside the tower or survive to gain strength and glory, is not my concern. My only goal is to witness someone reach the top of the tower with my own eyes. Everything else is meaningless to me. Ju-won fell silent at the declaration. The word meaningless echoed in his mind, conflicting with his own perspective. The tower, it's my family's legacy. My ancestors built it, and my clan is destined to reclaim it with all the strength and glory it deserves. I'm willing to risk my life to do so, he thought, but as he faced the headmaster, Ju-won couldn't help but wonder, what does the tower mean to others? Why do people from different dimensions come here to conquer it? Unable to suppress his curiosity, Ju-won asked, Teacher, what exactly is this tower? The headmaster fell silent for a few seconds, as if taken aback by the question. Then, he answered in a calm, measured tone, the tower is a path to divinity and a trial for those who seek it. Divinity, Ju-won repeated, his curiosity growing. Are you talking about the gods people usually imagine? Is it that kind of divinity? Something like that, the headmaster replied cryptically. Ju-won leaned back in his chair, his thoughts spinning. This is getting more and more complicated, he mused. Ju-won's mind raced, filled with thoughts, but before he could process them fully, the headmaster continued. Normally, I don't interfere when students face difficulties. However, I'm making an exception this time because I see immense potential in you, potential greater than any I've encountered before. I'll help you prepare for your journey to climb the tower. As he spoke, the doll's arm raised slightly, releasing a beam of sparkling dust that merged with Ju-won's identification necklace. What's this? Ju-won exclaimed in surprise. The headmaster explained calmly, I've expanded your exploration privileges beyond the academy's boundaries. You now have the ability to enter any dungeon outside the campus. Use this privilege to sharpen your skills during your free time before attempting to conquer the tower. Dungeons outside the academy? Ju-won asked, unsure. That's right, the headmaster confirmed. Now, off you go. Remember, improve your skills before climbing the tower. If you perform exceptionally, I'll unlock even more privileges for you. With a wave of the doll's hand, a glowing portal appeared beneath Ju-won's feet. Wait, what? Ju-won barely had time to react before he fell into the portal. Independent tower exploration, the headmaster's voice echoed after him. I look forward to our next meeting. The portal whisked Ju-won away, and before he knew it, he was launched out, landing directly into the arms of Professor Ayumina. Ah, so you're back, Ayumina greeted him cheerfully, completely unbothered by the suddenness of his appearance. How did your meeting with the headmaster go? Ju-won looked up, only to find his vision completely blocked by her assets. Flustered, he immediately scrambled away, his face red with embarrassment. The headmaster has an unusual way of sending people off, doesn't he? Ayumina commented with a shrug. Ju-won, still unable to look directly at her, mumbled a response. Why yeah, you know, Ayumina added with a smile. He's been looking forward to meeting you. After calming down a little, Ju-won recounted his conversation with the headmaster, including the expanded exploration privileges and promises of further opportunities. Hearing this, Yumina's eyes widened in astonishment. Wait, he gave you permission to leave the academy grounds? She asked. Incredulous. Her reaction puzzled Ju-won. Is that such a big deal? He asked. He said I need to work on improving my weaker skills. Ayumina nodded, her tone turning serious as she explained. Leaving the academy is a massive privilege. Normally, students are restricted to on-campus training and dungeons within the academy's boundaries until they reach a certain level of competence. Granting you external dungeon access means he sees something extraordinary in you. It's both an honor and a heavy responsibility. You'll be facing challenges far greater than what you've encountered here. Ju-won's expression shifted as the weight of her words sank in. So, it's not just a reward. It's a test. He realized. Exactly, Ayumina confirmed, her gaze steady. The headmaster has high expectations for you. Ju-won, don't take this lightly. Ju-won nodded, determination flickering in his eyes. I won't let him down. It's an incredibly huge privilege. Professor Ayumina emphasized. You can freely explore dungeons outside the tower and travel to cities beyond the academy. This means you'll gain far more experience and preparation than anyone else. Her words made Ju-won pause as the gravity of his situation began to sink in. No student has ever been granted this privilege before, she continued, her tone laced with both admiration and envy. Ju-won chuckled nervously. So it's not because I'm too weak and need remedial training. Huh, thank heavens. Turning back to Ayumina, he noticed her expression shift slightly as she added with a playful pout. You're really lucky, Ju-won. I'm honestly a bit jealous. Why's that? Ju-won asked, curious. Union is a student-focused academy. She explained. Professors are often too busy to take time off, especially at this stage in the semester. But you, with this privilege, you can not only explore dungeons but also travel to cities, shop, and even enjoy some good food. Seriously, I'm envious. As she spoke, her face inched closer to Ju-won, her eyes gleaming with an odd intensity. Beads of sweat formed on Ju-won's forehead as he nervously tried to lean back away from her. Finally, Yumina's true intentions surfaced. There's this beautiful city you should visit. It's called Ronica. The spring temple there is absolutely stunning and… Before she could finish, Ju-won interrupted, fearing she might pounce on him. Professor, let me bring you a gift from there. Scene transition, Ronica City. Ju-won stood in the bustling streets of Ronica, recalling Professor Yumina's earlier instructions. Ronica's honeymoon wine, aged by the monks, is incredible, she had said, her eyes practically glowing with excitement. It's famous for its sweet fruity aroma, dense bubbles, and lingering aftertaste. Buy me a bottle, or maybe two. Okay. Her enthusiasm for the wine was so intense that it felt less like a suggestion and more like a command. A professor who's crazy about wine. And she gives this task to a newly admitted student. Ju-won thought, shaking his head in disbelief as he scanned the market stalls for the renowned wine. Though a bit overwhelmed by his sudden errand, he couldn't deny he was intrigued by the vibrant atmosphere of Ronica. Thinking about it, Ju-won could only sigh internally. A professor sending her student to buy wine. This world is full of surprises. Still, he couldn't help but feel a bit relieved. At least I've got my inventory space now. Makes everything so much easier, he muttered while opening his storage and scanning its contents. His face lit up with satisfaction as he browsed through the items. But then something caught his eye, a particular bag nestled among his belongings. Oh, right, this is the one Grandpa gave me before I left for the academy. Ju-won remembered. Flashback, before enrollment. On the day Ju-won was preparing to leave, his grandfather approached him carrying a heavy-looking bag. Are you ready, Ju-won? His grandfather asked. Yes, Grandpa, almost done. Did you sleep well? Ju-won replied. His grandfather smiled warmly, but then dropped the bag onto the ground with a loud thud. Perfect timing. Open this up and take whatever you need. What is it? Ju-won asked. His curiosity piqued. You'll see. Just open it, his grandfather said with a mischievous grin. Ju-won hesitated but finally unzipped the bag. As soon as he did, brilliant golden light flooded the room, momentarily blinding him. "Whoa, is this pure gold?" Ju-won stammered, staring in awe at the bag's contents. "Yes," his grandfather chuckled. "This is the wealth of our ancestors, saved for generations to reclaim the Tower of Babel. Now, it's yours. Use it however you see fit." Ju-won was overwhelmed with emotion, tears welling up in his eyes. "Thank you, Grandpa, this will help so much." But then he frowned, looking at the sheer amount of gold. "How am I supposed to carry all this? It's so heavy." "What?" his grandfather barked, clearly annoyed. "You've been gifted a fortune, and you're complaining about the weight. I mean, just look at it. It's not exactly portable." Ju-won muttered. His grandfather sighed and shook his head in exasperation. "This kid," he grumbled, though there was a fondness in his tone. Back to the present. With his storage space now unlocked, Ju-won tossed his personal items into the inventory with ease. "Now that I have this inventory system, everything's so much more convenient. I can store anything in here without worrying about weight or space." Feeling more prepared, Ju-won returned to his current task, finding the legendary wine in Ronica. "Thanks, Grandpa. Your gift is already coming in handy." Grandpa said gold has value everywhere. Ju-won thought, grabbing a few bars from his inventory. This should be enough for now. Time to step into this new world. As he looked ahead at the modern city before him, he marveled at its vibrant skyline and bustling streets. Even though this is a different dimension, the urban scenery feels oddly familiar. He muttered. But then, his eyes caught sight of something extraordinary. People zooming through the sky on flying vehicles. "Never mind. It's very different. What is that thing? How is it flying?" he wondered, wide-eyed with excitement. Ju-won's awestruck expression and peculiar demeanor soon attracted the attention of two city guards. "Hey, you over there," one called out. "You look unfamiliar. Where are you from?" Ju-won turned toward them, ready to explain, but before he could utter a word, their eyes landed on his Union Academy uniform. Instantly, their expressions changed to one of respect. "Oh, you're a Union Academy student. Welcome," the guard said, snapping to attention with a formal salute. "We're the border guards for Ronica City's Western District," the other guard added, their voices brimming with enthusiasm. Ju-won, feeling a bit flustered by the sudden attention, scratched his head awkwardly. "Ah, hi, I'm Bang Ju-won, a first-year student at Union Academy," he said politely. The guards exchanged curious glances before asking, "But, how did you get here?" Bang Ju-won, "Did the headmaster personally authorize this?" "That's right," Ju-won replied with a nod. "He said I'm allowed to explore freely." At this, the guards' admiration deepened. "That's amazing. Thanks to the headmaster and the academy's efforts, our city has remained peaceful," one guard said warmly. "We're truly grateful to them." Their words left Ju-won pondering the true influence of Union Academy. "Wow, the Union's reach is even more impressive than I thought," he mused. The guards, noticing Ju-won's lack of familiarity with the city, offered to help. "As a new student, you probably don't know much about Ronica or how things work here," one said. "If you need assistance, we're here to help." "Really? That's great," Ju-won exclaimed, relieved to have some guidance. "Of course," the guard beamed, puffing out the chest proudly. "It's our job as guards to ensure safety and provide assistance. Feel free to ask us anything." Ju-won couldn't believe his luck. "With locals like these helping me, navigating this place will be so much easier." Grinning, he eagerly took him up on their offer, ready to learn all he could about the city and its mysteries. Without hesitation, Ju-won pointed to a flying vehicle in the sky and asked, "How much does that cost? I want to buy one." 1 hour later, Ju-won was soaring across a grassy field, piloting a brand new flying motorbike. "This is amazing," he shouted, the excitement clear in his voice. Flashback to an hour earlier, when the guards heard Ju-won's question about the flying vehicle. They exchanged nervous glances, sweat forming on their foreheads. "Are you talking about a flying motorbike?" one guard asked cautiously. "The basic model costs at least 250.00 ronias. It's pretty expensive." Ju-won tilted his head. Confused. 250.00 Ronius. How much is that? And it's called a flying motorbike. Without skipping a beat, he reached into his inventory and pulled out a gleaming gold bar. Holding it up for the guards to see. Can I trade this for one? The guards' eyes nearly popped out of their sockets. Is that gold? One of them stammered. Where did you even get something like that? My grandpa gave it to me. Ju-won replied with a carefree smile. Back to the present. Ju-won marveled at the value of gold in this world. One gold bar is worth 7.500.00 Ronius. Grandpa was right. Gold really is universal, he thought, silently thanking his grandfather for insisting he bring it along. That old man really knew what he was doing. Ju-won mused, recalling his earlier protests. Bring the gold, he said. It's heavy and annoying, I said. Guess I owe him an apology. As Ju-won reveled in his new vehicle, he noticed a gentle breeze swirling around him. Suddenly, his small companion, If, materialized and coiled itself around the handlebars, curiously inspecting the motorbike. What do you think, If? Cool, huh? Ju-won asked with a grin. The bike, now imbued with the concepts of love and demon, seemed almost alive. The enhancements Ju-won made had given the motorbike its own personality. From now on, your name will be Lilith, Ju-won declared, patting the bike affectionately. Be good to each other. Okay, If and Lilith, let's all get along. Lilith, a flying motorbike created by Bang Ju-won, was brought to life through the concepts of love and demon. Its newfound sentience and unique abilities made it a true testament to Ju-won's creative potential. As he sped across the open field, with If wrapped around him and Lilith humming smoothly beneath him, Ju-won felt an exhilarating sense of freedom and anticipation for the adventures ahead. Ju-won, having imbued the flying motorbike Lilith with sentience like If, watched as the small snake flicked its tongue in response. He wasn't sure if was annoyed or happy about having a sibling now. No time to worry about that, Ju-won thought, remembering the mission given to him by Professor Ayumina. All right, I've bought the wine for Professor Ayumina and even created a sibling for If. Everything's done, time to head back to school. Sometime later, Ju-won lay sprawled across a table, groaning as his head pounded and his vision blurred. Ugh, my head, feels like I'm dying, he whimpered, sounding like a pitiful puppy. At that moment, Lai walked over, irritated, and slammed a glass of water in front of him. I'm really disappointed in you, Ju-won, Lai said, shaking his head. You disappeared without saying a word after the meeting, and then you come back drunk out of your mind. Ju-won winced under Lai's critical gaze, his voice weak as he mumbled. I'm sorry, Professor Ayumina insisted. I couldn't say no. As he spoke, his mind flashed back to Ayumina gripping his collar tightly, refusing to let him leave until he finished his drink. Drink up, another one, come on, Ju-won, you've got this, she had cheered, her enthusiasm unmatched. By the end, Ju-won's face had turned a deep red, glowing like a sunset. This was my first time drinking, too, Ju-won muttered to himself, gulping down the water Lai had given him. Meanwhile, Lai sighed heavily, his frustration evident. If you had just said something sooner, I wouldn't have spent the entire time worrying about you, he grumbled. At that moment, Do Ho-jon, the cold and stoic one of the group, noticed the floral-shaped badge pinned to Ju-won's chest. Wait, she said, her gaze sharp. Is that badge the price you paid for drinking with the professor? Did she make you the class representative in exchange for being her drinking buddy? Ju-won leaned back, surprised. Class representative? You mean like, the class leader? If that's what you mean, then yeah, I guess so, he replied with a shrug. Since Professor Ayumina is overseeing our group of 4, I guess this was her decision. Live chimed in. Well, it's not like we have much of a choice. We just have to accept it. But before the conversation could continue, Do Ho-jon interrupted with a firm declaration. If someone is going to represent the 4 of us, it should be me. I'm the strongest one here. After all, you all know that, don't you? Her piercing gaze landed on Ju-won, as if daring him to disagree. Lai immediately objected. Hold on, Do Ho-jon, that's not fair. We're a team. We're supposed to be equals. You can't just declare yourself the leader because you're strong. The room grew tense as Lai continued. We need to sort this out properly. Strength alone doesn't make someone the best choice for class representative. Ju-won looked between the two, unsure whether to step in or stay silent. Why does everything have to get so complicated? He thought, rubbing his temples. That arrogant attitude of yours, Do-ho-jon, isn't going to help our future when we climb the tower together. Live snapped, pointing a finger directly at her. And by the way, I don't agree that you're the strongest, either. Do-ho-jon smirked in disdain, shaking her head. Ha, did you just say, equal teammates? How ridiculous, she scoffed. Wasn't it you, Live, who asked the professor yesterday if it's possible to climb the tower solo? Equality. Huh, where was that when you said that? Her words hit hard, and Lai's face turned beet red with embarrassment. That was. Lai stammered, struggling to defend himself as both Ju-won and Ultra turned their scrutinizing gazes toward him. So you did say that? Ju-won commented, raising an eyebrow. I was just curious. It wasn't because I didn't want to work with everyone or anything like that. Lai sputtered defensively, waving his hands. Ju-won, ignoring Lai's flustered excuses, slumped onto the table and let out a deep sigh. Great, I thought we might face discrimination from the regular students. But now it looks like my own team is already falling apart before we've even started. He rubbed his temples, mulling over the personalities of his teammates. Honestly, I'm not even interested in being class leader. But now I get why Professor Iomina chose me. Lai, too proud, lacking soft skills, and prone to emotional outbursts. Do-ho-jon, undeniably strong but far too authoritarian, likely to cause resentment. Ultra, Live, passive, lacking leadership qualities, and incapable of managing or inspiring anyone. What a mess, Ju-won thought. We're supposed to be a team of elite recruits, but we can't even get along. If this keeps up, we'll break apart before our first mission. Realizing he needed to intervene before things escalated, Ju-won finally sat up and raised his voice. Wait a second. Everyone, calm down and listen to me, he said firmly, drawing the attention of his bickering teammates. Being the class leader doesn't have to mean being the strongest. Leadership is about more than just brute strength or skills in combat. It's not that the class leader shouldn't be the strongest, but they don't need to be. Ju-won explained, his voice steady as he presented his reasoning. Hearing this, Do-ho-jon narrowed her eyes. And why's that? She asked coldly. Because if the strongest person becomes the class leader, they might make unilateral decisions based on their own preferences. Ju-won replied. But the class leader's role is to unify the class and make fair, balanced choices for everyone. That requires someone who can mediate and think about what's best for the group as a whole. So, someone easygoing like me would be the best fit. Ju-won concluded with a playful grin. Easygoing, you? Do-ho-jon nearly burst out laughing but quickly composed herself. Fine, the professor does have the authority to appoint a class leader. So if you want to play leader, I'll let you have it. Her agreement took Ju-won by surprise, but he quickly exhaled in relief. Thank you, Do-ho-jon, I really appreciate it. However, Do-ho-jon wasn't finished. She leaned back slightly and added with a smirk. Honestly, from the beginning, you're the only one I think is worth keeping here anyway. The rest, well, they're just excess baggage. She cast a dismissive glance at Lai and Ultra, her words dripping with condescension. See you later, she said curtly before walking away, leaving behind a tense silence. Lai, trembling with anger, clenched his fists so tightly his knuckles turned white. Excess baggage? He growled through gritted teeth. Ju-won, sensing Lai's fury about to erupt, quickly stepped in. Calm down, Lai, take a deep breath. Let's not escalate this, he said, trying to soothe his teammate. After a moment of tense silence, Lai reluctantly relaxed, though his face was still flushed with indignation. Good, Ju-won muttered under his breath, slumping into his chair, his energy completely drained. This morning feels less like school and more like a battlefield, he thought, massaging his temples. Egos, pride, and all this tension. This is going to take a lot more patience than I expected. Just as Ju-won closed his eyes to rest for a moment, a cheerful voice interrupted him. Hey, Ju-won. It was Live, her bright eyes sparkling with excitement. You didn't bring that adorable little snake of yours. I really wanted to pet it. Ju-won opened his eyes and sighed deeply, staring at the enthusiastic live. Great, this place is one walking minefield after another, he thought wearily, preparing to deal with yet another request. Ju-won let out a deep sigh, feeling the weight of his new responsibility. Why does my first day as Class 11's leader have to start like this? He thought in frustration. Scene transition, a training arena. Erichter, a student with a body made of stone, suddenly stood up and yelled, "Professor, I want to know how strong these special admission students really are." His booming voice grabbed everyone's attention. All eyes turned toward Ju-won and his group, filled with a mix of amusement and curiosity. The referee, dressed in prisoner-style stripes, chuckled and clapped his hands. "All right, let's kick off today's lesson with a sparring match. How does that sound to everyone?" The students immediately erupted into noise. "Let me go first." "No way, step aside, I'm taking the first match." "You there, take off that stupid pin if you think you're so special." The taunts flew from all directions, and both Ju-won and Lai stood in stunned silence. Lai's face paled slightly as he mumbled to himself. "So this is Union Academy. Splitting classes by ability sure stirs up animosity. Huh, Class 1 must really hate us in Class 11. Ju-won shifted uncomfortably, fingering the decorative pin on his uniform. A gift from Professor Yumina. Is this pin the reason we're getting so much heat? He wondered nervously. Meanwhile, Erichter's gaze fixated on the pin. His face twisted in anger as thoughts ran through his mind. That weakling. Wearing a pin given by Professor Yumina. Ah, goddess. How dare he flaunt it in front of me? The more he thought about it, the more his anger boiled over. Finally, he shouted at the top of his lungs. "Professor, let me personally test the strength of that guy. Please, let me fight him." The referee, unimpressed by the outburst, shrugged and replied, "Fine, step up, Erichter, you'll face Bang Ju-won." The decision was made without so much as consulting Ju-won. Meanwhile, Professor Yumina observing the scene. From a distance, Professor Yumina quietly observed the scene unfolding in the arena. This is Ju-won's first lesson as Class 11's leader, and it's already turning chaotic. Her eyes sharpened as she surveyed the two classes. A joint session between Class 1 and Class 11. I should have known something like this would happen. The air here feels far too hostile. With a sigh, she leaned back in her seat, her thoughts swirling. Let's see how Ju-won handles this mess. Why were we paired with the advanced students for a combat training session on our very first day? Ju-won sighed inwardly, his thoughts racing. A mixed class with advanced students for practical combat training right off the bat. It's obvious they expect us, special admission students from the secondary dimension, to lose. This schedule reeks of ill intent. Someone clearly set this up. Back to Ju-won. Ju-won wasn't foolish enough to engage in a fight with Erichter, the towering stone-bodied student glaring at him from across the arena. Instead, he immediately raised his hand and spoke up. "Excuse me, Professor, but my combat skills are lacking. I don't think I'll gain anything meaningful from this match." The professor, wearing a striped prisoner uniform, shrugged nonchalantly and replied, "Is that so? Fine, -3 points." The words hit Ju-won like a ton of bricks. His face fell, and he stammered, but, Professor, step up." Ju-won, stop making excuses, the professor barked, adjusting his glasses with a smug, authoritative air. At that moment, Ju-won realized something unsettling. This guy is targeting me. Why? Is he trying to humiliate me in front of everyone? His expression darkened as he tried to make sense of the professor's behavior. "I'm not making excuses," Ju-won replied calmly but firmly. "What I'm saying is true. I was admitted due to my unique abilities, not because of combat skills. If you're curious about the special talents of students like me, shouldn't there be a different evaluation method instead of forcing us into combat?" Ju-won's logic was sound, but the striped professor didn't seem impressed. His teeth clenched, and he shouted, "Are you trying to teach me how to do my job?" Ju-won didn't back down. His gaze was steady as he counted. "Whether it's a professor or a student, anyone who doesn't know something should be willing to learn. Besides, isn't it true that I represent my class? -5 more points." the professor roared, his voice echoing through the arena. Ju-won sighed deeply, his mind racing to find a way out. All right, so that's how he wants to play it. Huh, fine. Ju-won raised his hand again, proposing a solution. How about this, Professor? Give me 1 week to prepare. I'll enter the tower, hone my skills, and fight next week. By then, I'll be ready. He delivered his proposal with such confidence that the atmosphere in the arena froze for a moment. A hush fell over the students. Then, whispers started spreading like wildfire. Did he just say he'll enter the tower in 1 week? Is he serious? Some students exchanged glances, their expressions filled with disbelief and ridicule. It was clear they thought Ju-won was out of his mind. A match next week? Preparation? What is he even talking about? The arena erupted in disbelief. This guy's at the bottom of the ladder in terms of power. Yet he thinks he can prepare to face off against someone from the advanced class in just 1 week. Back to the striped professor. The so-called instructor, now visibly annoyed, bit his lip hard in frustration. First, he ignores my authority, and now he schedules matches on his own terms. Fine, have it your way, the professor growled. Ju-won, watching his opponent's frustration, smirked. Ignore him, why not? He's not even an official professor anyway. He mumbled his thoughts under his breath, causing Lai, standing behind him, to gasp in panic. The striped professor, after taking a moment to collect himself, finally declared, Bangju-won vs Ericta, 3rd period next week. The match will be official, public, and live-streamed across the entire academy. Make sure to tune in. The professor's smug grin betrayed his delight in planning Ju-won's public humiliation. So, not only does he want to embarrass me, but he also wants to turn it into a spectacle. Ju-won thought, his brow furrowing. Addressing Ju-won directly, the professor turned back to Ju-won with a condescending tone. And you, Bang-ju-won, since you specifically requested time to prepare, you better put on an impressive display. Otherwise, Ju-won, now thoroughly bored, interrupted. Of course, Professor, Ericta, right, I'm looking forward to it next week. He flashed a confident smile, his tone almost teasing. In response, Ericta spat on the ground and sneered. HMPH, weakling. The disdain in Ericta's voice was palpable, making Ju-won feel slightly embarrassed for his earlier show of politeness. Why did I even bother trying to be cordial with this guy? Ju-won thought, shaking his head. Not like I was expecting a civil response anyway. As Ju-won glanced at Ericta, his eyes activated the unique ability. Ericta's stats popped up in Ju-won's vision. Name, Ericta. Category, BBC. Vitality, 250. Physical strength, 300. Magic power, 120. Ju-won raised an eyebrow at the numbers. Alright, so he's strong, very strong, but that just makes things more interesting. Ju-won suddenly felt his decision to postpone the match until next week was spot on. No wonder they're in the special class, he thought, glancing back at Ericta's stats. The vitality and physical strength stats were monstrous. His vitality is 5 times mine, and his physical strength is tenfold. But even so, compared to some others, it's still nothing extraordinary. Looking at Lai and Ultra, Ju-won turned his gaze to his teammates. If I want to climb the tower with them, I'll need to surpass someone like Ericta first, he thought. He then forced a cheerful smile. Ha ha, why do you two look so gloomy? Are you worried about me? However, his words were ignored by the cold and stoic Dog Ho-jon, who had begun stretching behind him. Dog Ho-jon takes the stage. What's this? No one's stepping up. Unlike the class representative, fighting is my specialty, she declared confidently. Isn't anyone curious about the skills of a student from the special recruitment program? Come on, who dares to face me? If it's a duel, I'm always ready. Dog Ho-jon's words echoed across the arena as her overwhelming presence dominated the space. Even the holographic displays showing her stats struggled to contain her power. Reaction from the crowd. The gathered students froze, stunned by her confidence. Even the striped professor stood speechless, clearly unsure of how to respond. Ju-won watched the scene unfold, his thoughts swirling. Even someone like me can sense the sheer strength radiating from her. My thousand-sight eyes can't even fully capture her capabilities. There's no way the students from Class 1 haven't felt her oppressive aura either. Dog Ho John challenges Ericta. Seeing no one respond to her challenge, Dog Ho John sighed in disappointment. Really? If you're all too scared, I'll just pick someone myself. Her piercing gaze locked onto Ericta, the hulking figure of molten rock. Ericta, is it? You're not the type who only picks on the weak, are you? She taunted with a smirk. Come on, Ericta, I'll crush you, Dog Ho John taunted, her eyes gleaming with confidence. Ericta's reaction. Across the arena, Ericta froze in shock as he realized he had been singled out. His heart pounded. Deep down, he knew her strength far exceeded his own. The molten rock giant had initially targeted Ju-1, but this unexpected turn of events had him shaken. Everyone present could sense the danger Ericta faced. If he accepted Dog Ho John's challenge just to save face, it would cost him dearly, possibly injuries that would take weeks to heal. While Ju-1 wasn't directly affected by the situation, he couldn't stand by and watch. His innate kindness flared up, compelling him to intervene. Ju-1 steps in. Wait a second. Dog Ho John, Ju-1 called out as he stepped forward. I'm sorry, but Ericta already has a match scheduled with me next week. If you want to fight him, you'll have to wait your turn. Dog Ho John turned to Ju-1, her piercing gaze sharp with curiosity. Are you sure about this? Of course, Ju-1 replied confidently. Thank you for looking out for me, but I'll use my strength to prove I'm worthy. His resolute declaration caught everyone off guard. Even Dog Ho John raised an eyebrow. Intrigued. Ha, I thought you were just a sly little guy, she remarked, a faint smile tugging at her lips. Who knew you had some backbone? Fine, I'll let you handle it your way. Dog Ho John reasserts her challenge. With Ju-1 stepping in to claim his match, Dog Ho John turned her attention back to the arena. All right, other than Ericta, is there anyone else brave enough to step forward and fight me? Her words echoed across the silent space, but the crowd of students remained still, avoiding her gaze. No one, really? She asked again, her voice laced with disappointment. Seeing the continued lack of response, Dog Ho John sighed heavily, her tone now tinged with frustration. A minute ago, all of you were barking so loudly, but when faced with real strength, you all tuck your tails like scared turtles. Lai enters the fray. Her biting words hit their mark, and several students from Class 1 clenched their teeth in anger. Yet, none dared to step up, until a blonde-haired pretty boy decided to break the silence. Who are you calling scared turtles? He challenged, stepping into the spotlight with an air of arrogance. You're right, though, weaklings and fools often huddle together, barking like mad to protect themselves. It's entertaining to watch, I'll admit. His sharp words cut through the tension, reigniting the flames of competition in the arena. Upon hearing someone finally dare to engage in a verbal spar with Dog Ho John, Ju-1 immediately turned his attention to the challenger. Despite being in the same special class, this blonde-haired guy seemed to radiate an entirely different aura. His presence was overpowering. Ju-1 frowned slightly as he observed the man. His intimidating energy kept everyone around him at bay, their fear visible in their reluctance to approach him. Lai explains the challenger. Noticing Ju-1's confused expression, Lai leaned in to explain. That's Optima, the ruler of the Cassius dimension, Lai said, his tone carrying both awe and caution. Cassius, Optima, what's that supposed to mean? Ju-1 asked, his face blank with naivety. Lai and the others looked surprised by his ignorance. You don't know, Ju-1? Lai asked incredulously. Union isn't the only high-tier dimension. There are 10 others, and Cassius is one of them. Optima is a member of the ruling family of Cassius. Ju-1 learns about Optima. Hearing this, Ju-1 felt a bead of sweat roll down his temple. Wait, so he's from one of the most powerful families across all dimensions, he muttered to himself. Stunned. Meanwhile, the group watched as Optima confidently strode down to the arena floor. His every step exuded dominance, making even the air around him feel heavier. Professor, Optima commanded coldly. The professor, almost groveling, immediately understood the unspoken order. He scrambled to retrieve an electronic device. sparking curiosity in Ultra. The mystery device. What is that? Ultra asked, tilting her head. It's a recording device, Lai guessed. He's probably planning to record the fight and make it public. Record and then what? Ju-1 asked, still confused. They say everything here gets shared on the internet. Lai replied with uncertainty, but honestly, I'm not too sure what that even is. Ju-1 raised an eyebrow. Lai's dimension clearly lacked advanced technology, leaving him clueless about these concepts. On the other hand, Ju-1, hailing from a modern civilization, immediately grasped the implication. So, even here, they pull stunts like this. Ju-1 thought to himself, letting out a small sigh. Noticing Ju-1's understanding, Lai turned to him with curiosity. You know what the internet is? Yeah, Ju-1 replied with a nod. Preparing to explain, Ju-1 had just connected to Union's network. As Nex began explaining, it's basically an internal network set up by organizations or educational institutions to exchange information. Lai's surprise. Hearing this, Lai looked even more astonished. Wait, your dimension doesn't even know about Union's network. How do you know about this? Ju-1 scratched his head and replied casually. Well, in my dimension, this is kind of the universal direction of technological development. But, where's the school's internet access anyway? He continued swiping on his phone, clearly puzzled. At this point, Zutul, the busty and enthusiastic classmate, ran over to assist. Here, there's a live broadcast channel here, she pointed out eagerly. This one is of our current lesson. Ju-1 finds the stream. Thanks, Zutul, you're amazing at this stuff, Ju-1 said, immediately clicking into the live broadcast. Within moments, the screen displayed none other than Dogho John and Optima on the arena floor, their intense presences radiating from the feed. What the? This really is a live stream, Ju-1 muttered. The professor's really trying to humiliate us. But I don't think things will go the way he expects, Ju-1 added with a sly grin. The confrontation. Back in the arena, the tension was palpable. Both Dogho John and Optima emanated powerful auras, the clash between their presences thickening the atmosphere. After a prolonged silence, Optima finally spoke, his voice cold and commanding. Make your move. Dogho John responded with a confident smirk. You're weaker, so I'll give you the first shot. She extended her hand, a clear gesture of taunt. Weak, let's see how long you can stay arrogant. Kneel, Optima snarled, raising his hand and activating a mysterious ability. A new power emerges. From Optima's palm, a strange ripple spread outward. Even from where Ju-1 and his group stood, they could feel the oppressive energy reaching them. Ju-1's knees nearly buckled under the sheer force. It was as if the air itself demanded submission. This is different. This isn't like my language-based abilities, Ju-1 thought. It's like water flowing from high to low ground, he reasoned. Or like we can't survive without air. It feels like a natural law, twisted to his will. Everything in this space, it's forcing me to kneel. It's some sort of distortion of natural laws, Dogho John muttered, piecing together her own thoughts. Lai's realization. Hearing Dogho John's deduction, Lai turned to Ju-1. Wait, did you figure out the principle behind his power just now? Ju-1 looked up, slightly startled by the question, but nodded hesitantly. Yeah, I guess so, he said, his voice uncertain. It wasn't just about strength. It was about understanding how to stand against someone who could manipulate the very rules of the universe. But before Ju-1 could explain further, Zutul suddenly clung tightly to him, her body trembling as she stared ahead with pure fear in her eyes. Dogho John versus Optima, clash of powers. Back in the arena, when Optima's ability targeted Dogho John, it was like throwing a rock into the ocean. It vanished without a trace, not even causing a ripple. From Dogho John's palm, a swirling black and blue energy surged outward. With a casual flick of her wrist, she completely dispelled the oppressive force. The spectators were left speechless, their jaws practically hitting the floor. Even Ju-1 couldn't believe what he was witnessing. Unbelievable, that was just a simple pressure attack. And she neutralized it instantly. Ju-1 murmured to himself in awe. Optima's reaction. Optima's golden eyes gleamed with interest as he observed Dogho John dismantle his attack with ease. "Ha, you're not half bad," he smirked, seemingly entertained. Dogho John responded with a dry laugh, shaking her head. "Your abilities are as laughable as those horns on your head. If that's all you've got, this will be disappointing." "Not even close," Optima retorted, preparing another attack as his hand moved in a deliberate arc. Dogho John strikes first. Before Optima could unleash his next move, Dogho John read the situation instantly, channeling energy into her legs. She dashed forward at lightning speed and delivered a brutal kick to his midsection. The impact disrupted Optima's technique before it could fully manifest. "You thought I'd just stand here and take a second hit? Try again," Dogho John scoffed, her voice dripping with mockery. Optima defends. Optima managed to block her kick with a hastily conjured energy shield. But the force of her attack still caused him to slide back slightly. The need to defend visibly bruised his inflated ego. I didn't expect I'd have to use both hands in a fight like this," he grumbled, his frustration barely contained. "Brain-dead brute." Dogho John's voice suddenly rang out right next to his ear, startling him. A humbling blow. Optima instinctively lashed out with his arm, aiming at where he thought she might be. "Arrogant fool," he roared. What he failed to realize was that, for all his boasting, he had been the one spouting the most arrogant words since the beginning. Returning to Dogho John, Optima's punch hadn't even reached its target when she swiftly ducked to avoid it. Immediately, she used her left arm to swat Optima's arm aside while her right hand firmly grabbed his collar. Without hesitation, Dogho John drove her knee upward in a powerful strike aimed at his jaw. In just a few smooth motions, she demonstrated her superior technique and confirmed her initial thoughts. "As I thought, your movements are incredibly clumsy. Don't tell me you still need someone to spoon-feed you," she taunted with a mocking grin. However, Optima managed to block her attack just in time, conjuring another energy shield to deflect the knee strike. Still, the one-sided assault from Dogho John had clearly gotten under his skin. His face turned red with anger as he spat through gritted teeth. "You wretched woman." He gathered energy into his fist, unleashing a high-speed punch aimed directly at her. But once again, his attack struck nothing but air as Dogho John effortlessly sidestepped it. Live and Ju Won's observations. Live, watching from the sidelines, was completely dumbfounded as he muttered, "This is unbelievable. Optima, the supposed ruler of Ketios, is being utterly dominated by Dogho John." Hearing this, Ju Won continued to observe the fight, nodding slightly as he added his own analysis. "It looks like Optima is used to winning by immobilizing his opponents through distorting natural laws. But that strategy doesn't work on Dogho John, which is why he's in this mess." From their perspective, the golden-haired prince, Optima, was being toyed with like a mouse in the claws of a cat. Despite his immense power, he couldn't land a single effective blow. Dogho John's relentless assault. Dogho John didn't let up for even a second. After delivering a series of brutal punches to Optima's face, she followed up with a high kick that landed squarely on his jaw. If it weren't for his energy shields absorbing the impact, he'd have been down for the count long ago. Ju Won, the analyst, Ju Won, ever the observer, smirked as he commented, "That guy has impressive power and physical stats. Sure, but it's obvious he doesn't engage in regular combat. His technique is sloppy." Live, hearing this sharp observation, turned to Ju Won with a hint of surprise. "How do you always notice these things so quickly?" Returning to the scene of the battle, Optima was now so overwhelmed by Dogho John's relentless attacks that he had lost all chances of countering. Her punches flew at him with blinding speed, each one aimed to break through his defenses. "You dare disrespect me," Optima shouted, his voice laced with rage and desperation, seemingly oblivious to the situation he was in. Dogho John's response came swiftly, in the form of a fist smashing directly into his face, shattering his energy shield like it was made of glass. "Are you just here to flap your lips?" she taunted. "Or is your tongue so long you're asking me to cut it short for you?" Optima unleashes his power. Enraged by her taunts and his continuous humiliation, Optima finally snapped. A strange, glowing emblem, a circle formed by interlocking rhombus shapes, appeared above his head. His entire body erupted with a violent surge of energy, cracks forming across the arena floor as he slammed both fists down with tremendous force. "You wretched woman, how dare you humiliate me like this?" he roared, veins bulging as his voice escalated to a manic scream. "I swear I'll never forgive you. If you want to die so badly, I'll make it happen." Optima's unhinged shouts echoed across the arena, his aura growing more chaotic with each passing second. Dog Ho John's response. Watching Optima lose his composure, Dog Ho John remained unbothered. Instead, she smirked, her voice calm but laced with condescension. "Death isn't a concept a child like you should be throwing around so lightly." She began channeling her mana, a dark, crackling energy swirling around her arm, amplifying her already overwhelming presence. Then, without hesitation, she charged forward, ready to deliver a decisive blow. "Die!" Optima screamed as he unleashed his power, thrusting both hands forward with everything he had. The clash interrupted, just as the two fighters were about to collide with their ultimate moves. The booming voice of Professor Yumina rang out. "That's enough." With a single clap of her hands, the intense atmosphere was shattered. The oppressive energy radiating from both combatants instantly dissipated, leaving the arena in stunned silence. The interference from Professor Yumina caused both Dog Ho John and Optima to halt their actions immediately. At that moment, the entire arena became enveloped in a mesmerizing sea of flowers. The surreal sight left both combatants and the spectators in awe. Optima and Dog Ho John stood frozen, momentarily captivated by the dazzling illusion. The vibrant petals swirled around, carrying an enchanting fragrance that even Ju-Won could sense from his seat. Professor Yumina's warning. Seeing that both had ceased their attacks, Professor Yumina stepped forward and spoke with calm authority. "The Academy does not encourage life or death duels between students. It would be better if you reserved that intensity for climbing the tower. Do you both understand?" After delivering her advice, she snapped her fingers once more. The garden of flowers slowly faded, their beauty dissolving as if they had never existed. Ju-Won's thoughts. On the sidelines, Ju-Won furrowed his brows in thought. What was that? An illusion? He wondered aloud. But if it was an illusion, why could I still smell the flowers so vividly? Optima's retreat. Optima, realizing the presence of Professor Yumina meant the fight could no longer continue, clicked his tongue in frustration. Though clearly displeased, he turned and left the arena. What he didn't realize, however, was that Yumina's intervention had likely saved him from a much harsher fate. If not for her, Dog Ho John might have ensured he ended up tasting dirt for real. Dog Ho John and Yumina. Ignoring Optima's retreat, Dog Ho John turned toward Yumina. "You're strong," she remarked simply. In response, Yumina offered her a radiant smile. Seeing this, Dog Ho John sighed and returned to her seat. Ju-Won's reaction. "Welcome back," Ju-Won said cheerfully as Dog Ho John rejoined the group. Dog Ho John glanced at him briefly before asking, "What's your opinion?" "It was incredible," Ju-Won replied with a grin. "Just watching that match taught me a lot." Ultra's sudden reaction. Before Ju-Won could finish his sentence, Ultra suddenly dashed forward and clung tightly to his back, trembling uncontrollably. The unexpected gesture left everyone puzzled. "Ultra, what's wrong?" Ju-Won asked, raising an eyebrow. "Are you still scared of Dog Ho John?" Seeing Ultra's shaking form, Ju-Won's expression softened. "Haha, that's adorable. Don't worry, come on out, it's safe now," he said with a warm smile. Despite his reassurances, Ultra stubbornly refused to let go, clinging even tighter to Ju-Won's back. On the other side of the arena, the irritated voice of Professor Yumina rang out, drawing everyone's attention. "Professor Pharaoh, you will be penalized for this. Allowing a sparring session on the very first day. Not just allowing it but ignoring how far things escalated. Do you understand how serious this mistake is?" "I apologize," stammered the professor in the striped uniform. "An apology won't suffice," Yumina replied haughtily. "You should prepare yourself for the consequences." Yumina's interaction with Ju-Won. After admonishing the other professor, Yumina approached Ju-Won. "And as for you, Ju-Won," she said in a more gentle tone, "being a class representative requires proper decorum. Why are you wearing your badge upside down like this?" With a graceful motion, the beautiful professor adjusted the badge on Ju-won's chest. Her actions so close and personal that it sent the students watching into a jealous frenzy. "She's touching him so casually," one of the students grumbled under their breath. Yumina's farewell. However, Yumina seemed oblivious to the envious stares. After fixing Ju-won's badge, she stood up and smiled warmly. "Well then, I'll be on my way. Have a great day, everyone." As her elegant figure disappeared from sight, Ju-won let out an awkward chuckle, scratching the back of his neck. Our professor came to stop the fight. But instead, she's probably made things worse for me." Without even turning around, Ju-won could feel the hostile gazes of Class 1 burning into his back. Murmurs and spreading news. "Why only that weakling? I'm not letting him get away with this," someone muttered, gritting their teeth. Time passed quickly, and the buzz about the duel between Dogho-jeon and Optima spread like wildfire among the first-year students. "Have you heard? That girl from the secondary dimension went head-to-head with Optima." Head-to-head, more like she completely dominated him. A secondary dimension? Are you joking? How is this even possible? What's happening, and why are these new students so ridiculously attractive? Yeah, especially the pink-haired girl. She's adorable. Agreed. But don't forget, Optima is the top contender for the best freshman. No one should mess with him. Totally. Go watch the video Professor Pharaoh uploaded to the internet. The viral video. As the gossip continued, many students rushed to view the viral video of the battle. Watching the footage, the awe, confusion, and whispers grew louder among the students. It seemed the duel between Dogho-jeon and Optima had already become the talk of the academy. In the minds of the students, a storm of confusion brewed as they read the comments flooding the network. Online frenzy. What kind of madness is this? That silver-haired girl is insane. Looks like this year's new students were selected for their looks only. Silver hair is absolutely divine. I love you, silver-haired queen. Starting today, she's my idol. Same here. The comments from simps were relentless as they lavished praise on Dogho-jeon. But soon, the focus shifted to Ju-won. Attention on Ju-won. But why was that guy bargaining with Professor Pharaoh like that? A master negotiator, sharp-tongued. 2. Oh my god. Wait. Is that Professor Yumina, a literal goddess? Wait. No. What's this? Sister. Don't. What's happening here? Who is that loser? Someone give us the details. Comments continued pouring in. Curiosity and frustration mixed. Ju-won notices the buzz. Ju-won, now aware of the attention he was getting, glanced at the scrolling comments on the network. Yet, there was no joy in being suddenly famous. It feels like the entire world is talking about us. Ju-won muttered nervously. Lai's technological struggles. On the other side, Lai, struggling to comprehend the advanced technology, looked utterly bewildered. I can't understand this online language stuff at all. He groaned. Dogho-jeon's observation. Dogho-jeon, meanwhile, was scanning through the comments with her sharp eyes. Her expression tightened slightly. Strange. That guy's supposed to be the top contender. No way, she scoffed. There's at least one person in their class stronger than him. Dogho-jeon added, recalling the image of a mysterious girl dressed like a mage, quietly sitting in a corner. Ju-won's response. She turned to Ju-won. I thought you noticed her too. Ju-won shrugged nonchalantly, laughing. I was too focused on watching your match. Live's concern. Meanwhile, Live lay sprawled on the table, groaning. But hey, Ju-won, they're talking about you all over the community. Calling you a master negotiator or something. What's that supposed to mean? Ju-won sighed deeply. It just means they stopped criticizing the one who fought the top contender and decided to focus on me instead. Dogho-jeon's insight. That's not the only topic they're discussing, though, Dogho-jeon remarked. Lai's observation. Lai glanced around the room and noticed something peculiar. Now that you mention it, do we usually sit so far apart like this? He exclaimed. His gaze landed on the pink-haired Zutul, who had deliberately seated herself at a different table. Her entire body trembled, creating an uncomfortable silence during the meal. Zutul's fear. It seems like Zutul sensed something about Dogho-jeon. Or she's just too scared to sit near her. Ju-won thought to himself. I wonder what it's like when they're in the same room together. Ju-won mused to himself. Maybe she's still tense from before. Perhaps I can use this to help her relax. Everyone needs a little sweetness in their life. Thinking this, he decided to act on his idea. A sweet solution. Ju-won reached into his inventory and retrieved a jar of jam. This is heavenly jam, crafted from my synthesis ability. It's made from the concentrated extracts of 10.000 kinds of fruits. Ju-won explained with a grin. This isn't just ordinary jam. It has a mild but unique effect. It helps promote overall growth in stats. Take a look, he added, holding up the jar. His announcement caught the attention of Lai and Dog Ho-jon, who turned to him curiously. The magic of heavenly jam. Ha ha. Impressed. Hand me your bread, both of you, Ju-won said, opening the jar. As soon as the lid came off, a sweet, fragrant aroma wafted through the room. The scent was so intoxicating that Ultra, nearby, widened her eyes and turned her gaze toward the source of the heavenly smell. Ju-won spread the golden jam generously over slices of bread and pushed the plate toward Lai and Dog Ho-jon. Give it a try, he encouraged. Though hesitant at first, the two took a bite of the jam-covered bread. Explosion of flavor. The moment the jam hit their taste buds, both froze in astonishment. It was as if an explosion of flavor overwhelmed their senses, completely overtaking their minds. Even the stoic Dog Ho-jon couldn't help but let out a small gasp. This is incredible, she muttered, her cold demeanor momentarily melting away. It's delicious. What is this stuff? Lai exclaimed, still chewing. Ha ha, glad you like it, Ju-won beamed. Overwhelming praise. This isn't just good, Ju-won, Lai stammered, struggling to find the words. It's beyond amazing. Dog Ho-jon, too, nodded in agreement. I've tasted all kinds of delicacies in the Central Plains. But this is on an entirely different level, she admitted. Ju-won, satisfied with their reactions, couldn't help but smirk. Well, I guess I've got a hit on my hands. Both Lai and Dog Ho-jon kept munching with puffed cheeks, savoring every bite. Watching their ravenous behavior, Ju-won couldn't help but feel a bit awkward. Ha ha, just say it's good, and that's enough for me, he chuckled. Ultra joins the feast. Ju-won then turned to Ultra. Ultra, come over and try some, he invited warmly. Across the table, the pink-haired girl had been salivating at the sight of the jam. Unable to resist the enticing aroma any longer, she audibly swallowed her drool and hurriedly dragged her chair closer to Ju-won. Could I have one too, please? She asked hesitantly. Of course, Ju-won replied, his voice kind and welcoming. The moment Ultra bit into the jam-covered bread, her entire demeanor changed. She melted into bliss, the taste overwhelming her senses. This is the best fruity flavor I've ever tasted, she exclaimed with utter satisfaction. Overflowing praise. You made this with your ability? Lai asked, visibly impressed. Can I have more? Dog Ho-jon chimed in, her voice filled with longing. Of course, eat as much as you like, Ju-won replied with a bright smile. This tastes like something priceless, Dog Ho-jon remarked, licking her fingers with delight. It's not exactly cheap, Ju-won admitted, but as friends, we share things with each other. Think of it as my way of repaying your kindness earlier. HMPH, Dog Ho-jon huffed. Even if it's a gesture of kindness, this jam is exceptional. Fine, I've decided to repay you for this heavenly elixir. I'll personally teach you martial arts. A training invitation. Dog Ho-jon leaned closer to Ju-won, her face just inches from his. Let's begin immediately, she declared, grabbing Ju-won and transporting them to a training room. A mystical training space. The two found themselves inside a room with a serene, traditional Eastern aesthetic. Despite being in Union Academy, the room seemed entirely out of place in its calm, ancient atmosphere. This is incredible, Dog Ho-jon remarked, her eyes scanning the surroundings with curiosity. I didn't even know a place like this existed. It's so peaceful. While Dog Ho-jon admired the space, Ju-won quickly pieced together its significance. This training room, it must reflect the psychological environment of the user. Ju-won mused. No wonder the Union Academy is on another level. His voice carried a tone of awe as he took in the tranquil setting. Before Ju-won could fully process what was happening, he turned to Dog-ho-jon and asked, "But wait, we just left after eating. What exactly are you planning to teach me?" Instead of answering, Dog-ho-jon casually picked up a wooden sword, inspected it, and muttered, "This length seems just right. Don't move around too much," she instructed as she began swinging the wooden sword in her hand, making Ju-won feel a bit uneasy. "The basics of thrusting. Let's start with this," Dog-ho-jon declared. Moving into a stance, she positioned the wooden sword horizontally in front of her chest, gripping the hilt tightly with her right hand while her left hand supported the base. With a subtle movement, she applied force with her left hand and swiftly thrust the sword forward, aiming directly at Ju-won. Just as the tip of the sword was about to reach his face, she stopped abruptly. The force of the motion sent a gust of wind hitting Ju-won squarely in the face, leaving him stunned. "This is the basic thrust," Dog-ho-jon explained calmly. "A movement executed without hesitation. A strike created by humans, yet almost miraculous in its precision. A new concept, pierce." Despite her explanation, Ju-won remained in a daze, his mind racing. Pierce? But why does this feel like more than just a sword technique? The sudden realization left him bewildered as he delved into the concept of pierce. "Hey, Ju-won, are you even listening to me?" Dog-ho-jon called out, snapping him back to reality. "Oh, sorry," Ju-won replied sheepishly. "Focus and watch closely," she instructed firmly. "The essence of thrusting." Dog-ho-jon continued her lesson. "Thrusting isn't limited to a single form. You can perform it with anything. What I showed you earlier was the essence of a thrust, the core principles." She elaborated further while demonstrating various thrusting techniques with the wooden sword. How to thrust multiple times, choosing the right angles and positions, targeting with precision, and most importantly, executing a thrust with conviction and force. Each move she performed was fluid, culminating in another thrust aimed directly at Ju-won. The tip of the sword stopped just shy of hitting him. That was thrusting. "Never forget its fundamentals," she stated, her voice sharp and confident. The pressure of practice back on Ju-won's end. Even though he knew Dog-ho-jon wouldn't actually harm him, every time the tip of the sword came close, he couldn't help but flinch. Ju-won still felt a bit startled, despite knowing that Dog-ho-jon wouldn't harm him. However, he couldn't ignore the overwhelming sense of awe that her thrusting technique invoked. The depth of simplicity. Dog-ho-jon believed in mastering a single concept to its extreme, which created a sense of power far beyond the combination of multiple concepts. Perhaps this was why she was the undisputed master of the thrust technique. After finishing her explanation, Dog-ho-jon handed her wooden sword to Ju-won. "Do you want to give it a try?" she asked, her tone both encouraging and curious. "Ah, sure," Ju-won responded as he reached out to take the sword. He rolled up his sleeves slightly and added, "I'm a bit clumsy, so don't expect too much." "Okay." Hearing this, Dog-ho-jon couldn't help but chuckle. "Ha ha, if you could do it perfectly right from the start, then all my years of practice would be meaningless." Unexpected mastery. No sooner had she finished speaking than a sudden gust of wind swept past her, a result of Ju-won's attempt at the thrust. The strike was shockingly precise, almost matching Dog-ho-jon's own execution, leaving her momentarily stunned. What, could he really grasp the concept with just a single observation? She wondered, her mind racing. On Ju-won's side, despite having executed an impressive strike, his face remained scrunched up in dissatisfaction. "No, this still isn't right," he muttered, clearly frustrated. He scolded himself quietly. "Focus, Ju-won. You can't just imitate perfectly out of the gate." A revelation. Ju-won reflected on his training thus far. "Until now, I've always focused on combining concepts, thinking they could only grow stronger by complementing or supplementing each other," he thought. "But that's not everything. By refining what I already have, I can grow even stronger." He considered the word pierce, and why Dog-ho-jon had chosen it. There are so many ways to describe a thrust. Why pierce? To her, thrusting means piercing through a target. It must be a decisive, critical hit. Realizing this, A spark of understanding ignited in Ju-won. Channeling all his focus and energy, he executed another thrust. This time, the attack was so swift and powerful that it shattered the wall in front of him. Astonishment. The resounding crash echoed through the training hall. As Ju-won's powerful thrust created a massive shockwave, the room was filled with a loud explosion. The force of his attack caused a powerful backlash, leaving him to collapse onto the ground, exhausted. A word of caution. Dog Ho-jon, noticing Ju-won's overexertion, stepped in to stop him. Enough, she said firmly. You don't need to push yourself so hard right from the start. If you've understood what you've just seen, then test it out in a larger space. Use it against an opponent you actually want to defeat. Ju-won, panting heavily, nodded weakly. I understand, he replied, struggling to catch his breath. At that moment, as if celebrating Ju-won's breakthrough, multiple notifications appeared before him. You have comprehended and experienced the concept of Pierce. You have comprehended and experienced the concept of martial arts. Seeing the notifications, Ju-won couldn't help but grin. Haha, I barely swung the sword a few times, and my stats have already gone up. A surprising boost. Among the notifications, one special message caught his eye. Skill update successful. Conceptual understanding expanded. Depth perception through Van Dok's eye increased to 110. Martial arts, 36. Swordsmanship, 20. Piercing, 16. Seeing these updates, Ju-won was genuinely stunned. My stats have skyrocketed. I just learned Pierce, and it's already at 16 points. Swordsmanship, something I couldn't improve no matter how many goblins I defeated, has suddenly jumped to 20. My overall combat skills have doubled. The unexpected growth left him both amazed and confused. Dog Ho-jon's reaction. Meanwhile, Dog Ho-jon was also observing him with a mix of shock and disbelief. I can't believe I'm the one at a disadvantage here. Who would have thought that you could bypass the form of a weapon entirely and grasp the essence of a technique so quickly, she remarked. Her voice tinged with irritation. Ju-won, sensing her frustration, quickly tried to explain. No, it's not like that. I just watched you and copied what you did, he said, scratching his head. However, his explanation only seemed to annoy Dog Ho-jon further. Really? If everyone could just watch and copy, then why would anyone bother with years of grueling practice? She retorted, crossing her arms. Her irritation was evident, but deep down, even Dog Ho-jon had to admit, Ju-won's rapid comprehension was nothing short of extraordinary. Dog Ho-jon yelled in frustration, her irritation clear as day. Seeing her anger, Ju-won, ever the quick thinker, immediately switched to flattery. That might be true, but maybe it's because you're such a good teacher, he said with a grin. I'm serious. The moment I saw your movements, I felt something profound. The precision and meaning behind every motion, it's truly captivating. I even lost track of time watching you. Ju-won's voice was filled with genuine admiration, and his earnest expression caught Dog Ho-jon off guard. Her face slowly turned red as she processed his words. Ugh, this guy, she muttered under her breath. We haven't even known each other that long, yet he says things like this so easily. She sighed and turned away to hide her flustered expression. A token of gratitude, Ju-won, grateful for Dog Ho-jon's guidance, made sure to offer something in return. Thank you so much for your help. Honestly, the lesson was incredibly valuable. From now on, leave the jam making to me. Okay, Dog Ho-jon smirked and waved off his words. That's nothing compared to what I just taught you. What, really? What should I do, then? Ju-won asked, looking genuinely panicked. For the first time, Dog Ho-jon let out a laugh that Ju-won hadn't seen before, a rare and carefree smile. Don't worry, I'll make sure to get back at you for everything today. Just wait. I'll collect my interest later. Ju-won blinked, slightly confused, but nodded. Sure. Dog Ho-jon's face shifted back to her usual calm demeanor. Well, it's time for class. Let's head out. Oh, right, yeah, we'd better go, Ju-won said, snapping back to reality, as Dog Ho-jon activated her teleportation skill and disappeared. Ju-won stood still for a moment, a quiet thought slipping out. I didn't expect her to have a side like that. Meanwhile, elsewhere, the scene transitioned to a corridor within Union Academy. Lai and Ultra were walking casually, chatting along the way. Suddenly, a group of students from another class stepped forward, blocking their path. "Hey there, where are you from, sweetheart?" one of them asked, his voice dripping with arrogance. Ultra froze, her face reflecting a mix of surprise and unease. Before she could respond, Lai immediately stepped forward, shielding her from the group. "Hey, back off," Lai said firmly, his eyes narrowing as he glared at the group. "What's your problem?" The tension in the corridor thickened as the group smirked, clearly amused by Lai's attempt to intervene. As the blue-haired troublemaker raised an eyebrow, he turned his disdainful gaze toward Lai. "What's this? Who the hell are you?" he growled. Lai didn't back down. He stepped forward confidently and replied, "He's my classmate. What do you want?" His voice was calm but firm. For some reason, the blue-haired guy's face twisted with rage at Lai's response. "A lowly bug like you thinks you can interfere? Scram!" he shouted, his anger bubbling over. At that exact moment, Ju-won and Dog-ho John appeared, having just teleported to the scene. "Phew, hope we're not late," Ju-won said casually, his voice breaking the tension in the air. "Perfect timing," Dog-ho John added with a smirk. As they both walked toward the group, Ju-won noticed Lai and Ultra standing nearby and tilted his head in confusion. "What are you two doing? Not heading to class?" he asked innocently. The blue-haired guy scowled as he realized the new arrivals were acquainted with his targets. Clicking his tongue in irritation, he couldn't resist muttering some parting threats. "Watch your back, losers," he spat before storming off with his lackeys. Ju-won, who had no idea what had just transpired, scratched his head. "What's their problem? Did something happen?" he asked, looking at Ultra, who seemed flustered. Thank you," Ultra stammered, her voice barely audible. A change of scene. The scene shifted to a lecture hall. A bald, green-skinned professor was delivering a detailed lecture on the history of the academy. "So, you see, the history of Union Academy didn't begin when our chairman founded it. It dates back to the emergence of the tower in the primordial dimension," he droned on. Meanwhile, in a corner of the lecture hall, the blue-haired troublemaker and his gang were up to no good. One of them had a camera pointed at Ultra and was muttering. "She'd be a perfect addition to the collection." The bald guy in the group chuckled sleazily. "Such a waste, though. What's a bug like her even doing here? Trying to climb the tower?" The red-haired one in the middle sneered. "She'd be better suited for something else entirely," he said, smirking as he leaned back in his chair. "Something more fitting, huh?" one of the others asked. "If she comes to work as a maid at my place, I'd pamper her every day," the blue-haired one said, his tone dripping with mockery and innuendo. The group burst out laughing. "You're insane," one of them managed to say between guffaws. "Then I'll make the first bid," another chimed in, and their laughter echoed through the hall. Their actions and words, filled with arrogance and entitlement, revealed just how rotten their intentions were. But unbeknownst to them, their vile behavior had already been noticed by someone with the power to end their schemes. Those words, they didn't even bother to lower their voices. Speaking openly and loudly, Ultra, sitting quietly, was trembling as if she were on the verge of tears. Ju-won and Lai, seated above, couldn't miss a single word. Their faces darkened with anger. "No matter where you go, some people are always the same," Ju-won thought, his lips pressed into a thin line. But what's wrong with the professor? How can he just ignore this chaos? While Ju-won silently mulled over the situation, Lai's patience ran out. Standing abruptly, he addressed the professor. "Excuse me, sir." The old, green-skinned professor paused his lecture and turned toward Lai. "Yes, did you call me?" Lai didn't hesitate. "Yes, sir. The other students are being too noisy. It's making it difficult to focus on your lesson. Could you do something to quiet him down?" The professor scratched his head, muttered a vague acknowledgement, and then addressed the class. "All right, everyone, no talking during the lecture. Focus on what I'm saying." He then resumed lecturing as if nothing had happened. "Now, back to the Union Renaissance." Ju-won and Lai exchanged shocked looks. "That's it?" they thought simultaneously, utterly baffled. Meanwhile, the three bullies snickered, mocking Lai. "Look at this little teacher's pet." One of them jeered. "Thinks he's better than us." Another chimed in. "Is that why I couldn't get her number? 'Cause of this guy? What's the deal? Are you two a couple?" Another sneered, bursting into laughter. Their words stung. Ultra's tears began to well up, while Lai clenched his jaw so tightly his pen snapped in his hand. He was ready to explode when Ju-won's hand gently rested on his shoulder. "Calm down," Ju-won said softly. Lai shot him a furious glance. "Calm down? Seriously? Did you not hear what they just said? Are you telling me to stay silent? Even after hearing things like that from classmates?" In response to these words, Ju-won maintained a calm expression and replied, "If you're not going to stay calm, what are you planning to do? Fight? Doing something meaningless like that won't make things better. Causing trouble in class will only escalate the situation. Just stay calm and watch this." As he spoke, Ju-won began pulling out his phone and played a live stream. It showed a recorded session of the history class at Union School. Uploaded to YouTube. "What do you mean?" Lai asked, curious. At that moment, Ju-won flashed a sly grin and said, "There are many ways to solve problems. Lai, to deal with cowards who talk behind others' backs. The best method is to give them a taste of their own medicine." Hearing this, Lai seemed to have a hunch about what was happening and exclaimed, "Wait, Ju-won, don't tell me." Without responding, the main character of our story immediately began fiddling with his phone. "Ha ha, go ahead and keep laughing. You idiots. All your dirty antics from class are now being broadcast live." At that moment, from their point of view, a camera angle from above was streaming directly toward the three troublemakers, who had no idea they were being secretly recorded. Oblivious, they continued spouting disdainful remarks. "What does a worm like him think he's doing? Trying to climb to the top of the tower? If you come to my house to clean, I'll pamper you every day. You lunatic." The camera angle, it turns out, was captured by Little Snake, carrying a small camera in its mouth and filming from above. Naturally, after hearing such comments, the online community began flooding in with outraged remarks. "What's this? Worms? Seriously? Which class are these maniacs from? They're new students from class 7, aren't they? Are you guys insane? Where's the professor? This year's freshmen are nuts. This is way too much. Respect to the blonde girl, still studying diligently despite hearing such words. This is why some people are called digital trash. What's wrong with Union School these days?" One comment after another appeared relentlessly, causing Ju-won to laugh heartily. "Look at that reaction. This is explosive. They're getting roasted hard." "As expected," Lai said nervously, her voice trembling. However, Joan shook her head, then turned to look at Ju-won, giving him a rare compliment. "You're pretty smart. Huh, you named it, Union History, to subtly guide public opinion. Didn't you?" Ju-won chuckled mischievously. "No way I'd let those who hurt Zutal off the hook. I'll make them truly miserable." With an ominous grin, he continued to watch as the chaos unfolded. Before long, the troublemakers finally realized they had become the center of attention online. "What the hell is this? A live broadcast? Damn it, who's recording this?" The three panicked, shouting as they frantically looked around to find the source of the camera. It didn't take long for the green-haired one to notice Little Snake holding a camera in its mouth. "Recording from above. There it is, over there," he yelled to his two companions. But before they could grab the snake, Little Snake vanished right before their eyes, leaving them fuming. "Where did it go? Damn snake. Was it you, Blondie?" the green-haired one snapped, turning his anger toward Ju-won. However, their antics in the classroom had already crossed the line for the bald professor, who finally spoke up, his tone icy. "You lot, your attitude toward studying is disgraceful. You were the ones causing all that noise earlier, weren't you? Write your names down and get out of my class immediately." His voice carried an aura so intimidating that even the red-haired troublemaker cowered. "It's not like that, Professor," he tried to explain. "Someone uploaded a video of us online." But the professor cut him off sharply. "I don't care." Before they could explain further, he had already kicked them out of the classroom with a stern shout. "I said get out. The professor, clearly exasperated, warned the rest of the class. I'll give those three an F for the entire year. And as for the rest of you, don't disrupt others. Focus on the lesson. Meanwhile, back at Ju-won's seat, he observed the scene with amusement, mentally giving the professor a thumbs up. Wow, even the professor isn't someone to mess with. Ha, incredible. Still, he thought to himself, being let off with just an F after saying such things about Zuttel was far too lenient. It's annoying, Yu-won muttered, and his friend Lai agreed. True, but those guys' college life is as good as ruined now. Turning their attention to Ultra, they noticed the pink-haired girl smiling with satisfaction as she spoke. It's okay, this much is enough. I'm fine now. Thank you both for standing up for me. Looking at her adorable face, Ju-won felt a bit flustered and quickly turned his gaze forward. I didn't really do anything, he said modestly. In terms of strength, I can't compare to you two. My way of handling things just happened to work. That's all, no need to thank me. Still, Ultra smiled and reassured him. Because you're the class president, I feel more at ease. Ju-won. Lai chuckled, and the mood lightened as time passed quickly. The scene shifted to the same arena as before, where the trio of troublemakers approached Lai to seek revenge. Hey, you, the pretty boy over there. Hearing their calls, Lai turned slightly to look back. Yeah, I'm talking to you. Come here. What, are you deaf? The three troublemakers, looking aggressive, stalked toward Lai. What's the issue now? What are you planning this time? Lai asked coldly, his tone sharp. The three glared at him as if they were ready to pounce. The green-haired one growled first. Explain what happened yesterday, you worm. Behind him, the red-haired one ground his teeth in frustration. Because of that stupid live broadcast yesterday, my grades are already trashed at the start of the semester. We're being targeted by the seniors now. And even our classmates are avoiding us. Do you even realize what you've done? The bald one yelled furiously, as if they were the victims in this situation. This is all your fault. Ignoring their accusations, Ju-won turned his attention to the professor, who was sitting calmly nearby, seemingly observing the unfolding drama. True to Ju-won's expectations, the professor didn't disappoint with his reaction. The professor merely observed the situation with interest, showing no intention of intervening, even as the three troublemakers wielded sharp weapons and confronted the group. The professor didn't make a move to stop them. It seemed that both the professors and the students here didn't regard those from the secondary space as worth their attention. Yu-won thought to himself, well, who would care about the state of chickens and pigs? Meanwhile, Bruno, nervous, moved quickly to hide behind him. Returning to the confrontation, the green-haired and red-haired troublemakers gripped their weapons tightly, spitting insults directly in Lai's face. What did you just say? You bastard, say it again, the green-haired one shouted loudly, as if afraid no one had heard him the first time. Seeing their aggression, Lai smirked coldly and replied, his voice sharp and clear. It seems you still don't understand. So let me repeat myself. If you want an explanation, ask politely, you savage. Faced with this insult from someone they considered inferior, the trio of fools trembled with rage, their bodies shaking uncontrollably. What did you call us? Savages. The green-haired one seethed, his voice venomous. An inferior creature from the secondary space like you dares to talk down to us. He pressed his blade against Lai's neck, ready to strike, but before he could act, a flash of light streaked through the air, and the tip of his blade snapped cleanly in two. Gasps of astonishment erupted from the crowd as they tried to comprehend what had just happened. What was that? Yu-won thought, his mind racing as he pieced together what he had seen. In that moment, a new concept seemed to take root in his mind. Turning back to Lai, a brilliant sword radiating dazzling light was now in his hands. I already told you, Lai said, his tone icy. If you ask politely, I'll be happy to answer. As he spoke, he pressed the gleaming blade against the green-haired troublemaker's neck. Terrified, the latter dropped to his knees without hesitation. Meanwhile, Yu-won observed the scene. Stunned, the aura radiating from Lai was nothing short of extraordinary. This is strange, Yu-won thought to himself. The air around him has changed completely. Could it be the sword? How could such a magnificent concept manifest like this? The sheer brilliance and presence emanating from the blade left everyone in awe, solidifying the realization that Lai was not someone to be underestimated. Ju-won wondered to himself, silently observing the scene, unaware of his own growing thoughts. Meanwhile, Lai, seeing the green-haired troublemaker kneeling in submission, calmly spoke, "Staying silent like this is good. Now that you've greeted me properly, you can leave." On the other side, the green-haired one's body was frozen in place, paralyzed by the overwhelming pressure emanating from Lai. "I can't move, my legs won't respond," he thought to himself, overwhelmed by the intense weight of the aura. However, the other two fools, oblivious to the danger, continued to spew insults. "You filthy worm, how dare you!" Ignoring their meaningless taunts, Lai shifted his attention to the professor sitting nearby. "Professor," he asked, his tone calm but sharp, "how would the academy evaluate a group of students who suddenly attacked their classmates with swords during class?" Hearing this, the professor smirked. "Why are you asking me?" "Well, our academy encourages real-world practice. So from a certain perspective." He seemed ready to brush the matter aside. But Lai wasn't going to let him off that easily. "But I never agreed to a practice session, did I?" Lai countered coldly. "That's true," the professor admitted. "But regardless of consent, you did draw your personal weapon first, didn't you?" Lai shook his head. "No, I only responded after being provoked," he replied. The professor, clearly irritated, retorted, "You can't deny that you were the first to release energy in this situation." However, Lai had his reasoning ready. Doing so was necessary to prevent further harm. "Or are you suggesting I should have just stood there and let myself be attacked?" "How dare you!" the professor barked, his temper flaring. Seeing Lai argue directly with the clearly biased professor, both Yu-won and Louis started to worry for their friend. "This situation feels off," Yu-won muttered quietly, glancing at Lai. Turning back to Lai, they noticed something unnerving. His gaze toward the professor was now one of pure, murderous intent. "Then tell me, Professor," Lai said, his voice low but cutting, "how should I respond to their vulgar insults and provocations?" The professor hesitated, then shrugged dismissively. Well, I didn't see anything," he said, feigning ignorance. Such a blatant lie only fueled Lai's fury. The situation had reached its peak, and Lai, the blonde-haired young man, finally erupted in anger. "What did you just say? Repeat that," he roared, his voice echoing through the room. At the same time, his sword unleashed an even more terrifying energy, sending shockwaves that startled everyone around. Fortunately, Dog Ho-jon stepped forward just in time, flicking Lai on the forehead to stop him from doing something reckless. "You idiot," she said, watching Lai clutch his forehead with one hand while tears welled up in his eyes from the painful flick. Before Lai could even question her action, she retorted sharply, "Too noisy, acting all high and mighty just because you let the sword control you. What are you showing off for?" As she spoke, she gave him another sharp double-finger flick to the forehead. Hearing her scolding, Lai quickly sheathed his sword. The moment the sword disappeared, Ju-won felt the strange, overwhelming energy dissipate as well, allowing him to finally breathe a sigh of relief. Meanwhile, the green-skinned professor, clearly irritated, grumbled as he leaned on his cane. "Arrogant creatures from the secondary space. How obnoxious," he muttered before turning and storming off. His behavior, resembling that of an old, angry dog barking wildly, left both Ju-won and Zutal speechless. "That was a bit dangerous just now, wasn't it?" Ju-won said, glancing at the pink-haired girl beside him. Meanwhile, Dog Ho-jon continued to lecture Lai, her tone strict. "You just got your hands on a useful artifact, and you're already shouting and causing a scene. Is this your true nature? Seriously, Lai, you're the biggest ticking time bomb I've ever seen." Watching the scene, Ju-won muttered to himself, "Yep, Lai really is a walking disaster." Later, while eating together, Ju-won didn't touch his food immediately. Instead, he played with it idly and spoke to Lai. "You know, I've been thinking a lot. If we keep going at this rate, we might not get treated well at the academy." His gloomy tone made Lai feel slightly uneasy. "What are you saying?" Lai asked, raising his voice. Ju-won, now visibly annoyed, rolled his eyes and snapped back. What do you mean? What am I saying? It's not like I haven't tried to get along with the professors. I even registered for an official duel match after being provoked. Do you think I'm the same as you? Hearing this, Lai's voice grew softer. Ah, right, about that. Ju-won sighed, reflecting on the situation and the chaos that always seemed to follow Lai wherever he went. I just want to improve the situation a little. Lai stammered, his voice trembling. However, Ju-won's anger hadn't subsided at all. Right, he scoffed. And in the end, you created an even bigger problem. I just can't understand you. You let those ringleaders off the hook and then decided to challenge the professor. I'm sorry, Lai muttered, his voice low, with tears welling up in his eyes. On the other side, Ju-won was more concerned about Lai's demeanor when wielding that sword. Normally, Lai wouldn't act so recklessly. It was as if something had flipped a switch inside him. So it's really the sword's influence. Ju-won thought, frowning. To ensure no further trouble occurred, he asked sternly, "Be honest with me, can you control the power from earlier?" Hearing this, Lai slammed the table confidently and declared, "Of course. If I couldn't, how could I have passed the entrance exam? Earlier, I was just angry at the professor's blatant lies." "Oh," Ju-won replied, smirking, "so it was the lies. Huh, pretty terrible lies, I admit." Although he smiled, his tone carried no trace of trust, making Lai shiver involuntarily. Yes, I understand," Lai stammered. "Trust me, I promise what happened today won't happen again." The blonde-haired youth thumped his chest in assurance. But before he could relax, Dog Ho-jon interjected bluntly. "Good thing this didn't cause too much trouble. But honestly, watching you get controlled by the sword was pretty entertaining. You deserve to be scolded more." "That's enough," Ju-won said, trying to calm the situation, seeing that Lai had already slumped over the table, completely deflated. Turning back to Dog Ho-jon, the swordswoman seemed to remember something and addressed Ju-won. "Hey, Ju-won, I think I'm starting to understand what the professor was hinting at a few days ago. If things continue like this, our school life is only going to get louder and messier." She looked directly at him and asked, "If you have any thoughts about our future, speak up now. I want to hear what our class president has to say." Hearing such a serious question from Dog Ho-jon, both Ju-won and Lai were taken aback. Our protagonist, Ju-won, felt a bit surprised. "My opinion, huh?" he thought. "After these past few days of school, I've started to understand what the real problem is. The belief that some people are born strong, or that one's background determines nobility. Excessive disdain for lower dimensions and the rigid, outdated system that treats this as normal. What can outsiders like us do in a place where such things are considered commonplace?" Thinking this, Ju-won felt a headache coming on and turned to the others. "So, do you all want to gain public sympathy or not? If so, how would we achieve that?" Hearing the question, the group looked puzzled but eventually offered answers. "Strength," Lai said confidently. "Power," Dog Ho-jon added. However, Ju-won quickly interrupted. No, it's something you already have, your appearance." He gestured toward the group of strikingly attractive individuals and continued. "That's it, you all already have the looks." He then began outlining his plan. "So you're suggesting we create a channel documenting our daily lives?" Lai asked, astonished. Ju-won nodded firmly. "Exactly. Back on Earth, this method is often used to win public favor. We'll build an image and share it with the public. When people perceive us positively, it naturally fosters a sense of closeness. Over time, that can develop into respect, or even admiration." While explaining, Ju-won adjusted the camera angles and lighting, directing everything toward Lai. The latter, upon hearing the plan, seemed to understand but had one lingering question. "But, Ju-won, if the goal is to earn respect and admiration, why do we need to fake fights with each other?" "It's not fake, it's real," Ju-won clarified. "Be serious about it." At that moment, Dog Ho-jon charged in and began launching a flurry of attacks. However, Lai, not taking her seriously yet, hesitated. "Fighting seriously right now feels so awkward," he thought, conflicted. Nevertheless, he threw a right hook. But his punch was immediately caught by Dog Ho-jon. Hu dodged skillfully. Don't worry, Ju-won, she said with a smirk. Once he gets hit a few times, he'll start taking this seriously. With that, she grabbed Lai by the collar and executed a flawless shoulder throw. The impact was so strong that a small crater formed on the floor, leaving Lai dazed and dizzy. Seeing his condition, Dog Ho John couldn't resist teasing him. Wow. Is that really all you've got? Makes sense, though, last time, you were completely under the sword's influence. What's the point of pulling out that sword anyway? I bet even if you did, you wouldn't be skilled enough to beat me. Her mocking words made Lai grit his teeth in frustration, his mind boiling with determination.